he thought, and rightfully so, that he was the greatest basketball player that ever lived.
Physically, he was still the most imposing physical player that ever played this league, period. There's no one that's come close to him in terms of just physical prowess.
And as athletic as any man who ever walked the earth. You try guarding that on a basketball court sometime.
This was more than just some big guy who dunked the basketball and ran up and down the court. This was a true athlete. And his physical prowess was unbelievable.
He's going to the basket.
Deep, there's Wilt to block the shot. Boy, Wilt blocked that nicely. Wilt playing another tremendous game. Wrap around pass. The Globetrotters are here and jumping in. Great play by the big man.
Welcome to GOAT James Kingdom. Welcome. I am Ajani the Exposer, and y'all have now been exposed by the Exposer. I appreciate it. And enjoy. I am called Ajani the Exposer. You guys are being exposed today.
Your opinion, I guess.
Move on from it. It was the 90s. That's it, bro. Move on from that. You don't know history. You don't know basketball. You just told me I'm stupid. But look how stupid you look because you don't know all this basketball. You don't know history. You don't know jamming. You don't know schematics. You don't know coaching. You don't know scouting. You don't know drafting. You don't know nothing from that. Michael Jordan's great because the media said do that. So told you to say that. I know that is recorded, and you are officially being exposed by the Exposer, and you're going to sit there like a man and take this just like Buddy did 2 weeks ago.
Let's get ready to rumble.
Hey, get your numbers out. I had to get my numbers out.
Peace and blessings, y'all. Welcome to another Friday Night Exposure with the Exposer. I'm your host, Ajani the Exposer, coming live and direct straight off of the GOAT James Kingdom channel. We also going live off the FYF Sports Debate channel. Y'all know what to do. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, become a member of both channels because we do it like none other here. We talk the game of basketball. As you can see, tonight's program is about how great is Wilt Chamberlain. We need to discuss this because I'm a basketball fan and I'm a historian when it comes to just in general. I love history. And the game of basketball needs to be broken down because we have a lot of lies being spread in the basketball world. One and many of lies by of Wilt Chamberlain in exact. So we're going to have a great show. We're going to discuss Wilt Chamberlain's career. So again, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, become a member of the channel because you guys know FYF and GJK has collaborated. I see y'all in the comments already. Y'all know what to do. Peace to everybody. Y'all know what this is, man. Again, this is the Friday Night Exposure with the Exposer, live and direct straight off the GOAT James Kingdom platform. We're going live on all other platforms. You can catch us right now on Instagram. We're also going live to Instagram, so shout out everybody on Instagram. Y'all know what to do. We're on Twitch. We're on Twitter. This is what we do best here. We talk the game of basketball. So we're going to see if y'all can talk the game of basketball with us tonight. Shout out to everybody that's a part of the FYF lineup as well. That goes for the In the Zone crew, the Full Court Press crew, and the Crossover crew. And last but not least, Lamont and the FYF Sports Debate shows. Shout out to y'all. We're going to have a great Friday night because y'all know Friday Night Exposure is all about the game of basketball. I do it best. I come to expose all of these fools who claim they know the game but don't know the game. But in reality, where is Wilt Chamberlain ranked in your top 10, top 20, top 50 list of all time? Where do you put Wilt Chamberlain at? Because for me, Wilt Chamberlain is number 2. I got Wilt Chamberlain as the second greatest player to play the game of basketball. I'm not even going front. I told y'all I know the game. Wilt Chamberlain is a monster. And I'm going to break it down why Wilt Chamberlain is literally the GOAT. If we really want to talk about it, if we really want to take it to that point, Wilt Chamberlain should be the GOAT. His career is phenomenal. And I know we're going to have a lot of detractors and a lot of people's going to talk a lot of nonsense. But again, I'm going to allow you to come up very shortly. I will put up the link for everybody. But what we're going to discuss, though, is Wilt Chamberlain, where you have him ranked. Y'all tell me where y'all got Wilt Chamberlain ranked. I got him second all time. Now, originally, I had Wilt Chamberlain 6th on my all-time list because my top 5 list was basically my top 5 starting 5. And that was basically LeBron, Jordan, Magic, Bird, Russell. Then from there, I put Wilt Chamberlain and went everybody else on. But once I started doing the GOAT debate and started really really getting into the debate in general, shout out to you, Zero. I see you. Peace to you, brother. Thank you for joining me again on another Friday night exposure with the Exposer. Shout out to you, Holy Prophet. I see you, JC. Thank you again for joining me again on another Friday night exposure. Shout out to you, T Perfect. We know who you are. Shout out to you as well. Thank you for joining me as well. Shout out to all of you gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. This is the Friday night exposure with the Exposer. So we're talking Wilt Chamberlain, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about how great is Wilt Chamberlain. Well, for me, Wilt Chamberlain is Thanos. And I'm letting y'all know this off the top. Wilt Chamberlain is Thanos. He is Thanos to me. I've always told people this. You need the Avengers to defeat Wilt Chamberlain. This man was ahead of his time. He was a freak of nature. Pause. But Wilt Chamberlain's career is unmatched. His legacy, his actual, the myths about and the legends of Wilt Chamberlain is unmatched. So I call him Thanos. And another one of the reasons why I want to call him Thanos is, again, Wilt Chamberlain is a misunderstood individual. And we're going to discuss this because Wilt Chamberlain, just like Thanos, was so powerful, so great, so all universal that people didn't understand his motives, what he was all about. Wilt Chamberlain was born one of 9 children in the Chamberlain household, a working family household. Wilt Chamberlain grew up in a very well background. He had a good mother and father. He had a very good family structure. But around 12, 13 years old, supposedly Wilt Chamberlain was 6'10", 6'11". Now, mind y'all, I'm 6'4", and people look at me and be like, "Oh my God, you're tall." Besides Wally. Right? But can you imagine seeing a 12-year-old at 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", whatever Wilt Chamberlain was at that age? In the 40s and the 50s, being a black kid, being that tall. I mean, he was completely misunderstood. And we all know what happens in human society when you misunderstand people, when there's a misunderstanding of something. We fear it. We hate it. We don't know how to actually appreciate it. And that's what Wilt Chamberlain had to live through his whole life. So here it is. You have this tall kid who's from Philadelphia, right? He's playing the game of basketball. He learns the game. He plays high school, obviously, because there's no way you're going to see some 6'11", 7-foot kid walking in your high school and you're a high school coach and you're not going to put him on a team. Especially back then in the 40s and the 50s. Back then, if you were tall, that's all you needed to be was tall to play the game of basketball. So Wilt Chamberlain being that tall was like, again, he was just a phenom. He was a freak of nature. He was different from everybody, his peers, his friends. No one was like Wilt Chamberlain. And everybody only saw him from being tall. They never really understood Wilt Chamberlain. But he went on to dominate high school. He was so dominant in high school that he got drafted in high school. They drafted him. The Warriors drafted him right out of high school. But obviously they had to wait 4 years until they could put him on the team. That's how good Wilt Chamberlain was in high school. He was averaging 37 points per game in one season in high school. He only played, obviously in high school you got to play your all your years. But when he went to college, you can't play his freshman year, and then he played 2 years in Kansas. And this is where it gets crazy because, again, he's a freak of nature. Can you imagine trying to coach Wilt Chamberlain? Could you imagine doing the type of things you would expect from Wilt Chamberlain? If you're a coach, he's just dominant. He did everything well. And he learned the game. He was a smart person too. He wasn't stupid. He was very, very smart. So Wilt Chamberlain went on to college and he was a freak of nature. He took Kansas to the national championship game in 1957. And in 1957, they lost that game. I think the score was like 53-54. Now, mind y'all, they went to 3 overtimes and the score was 53-54. You got to ask, well, what kind of scoring is that? Yeah, that was horrible scoring because they were able to double team, triple team Wilt Chamberlain without him having the ball, because that's what they did all game. And what he called was freeze the ball. They would legitimately hold the ball. Teams weren't even looking to take a shot versus Wilt Chamberlain. They would rather hold the ball and wait till the last second to shoot the ball and play the whole game that way and hope to beat Wilt Chamberlain and take the whole team to cover him. They were leaving Wilt Chamberlain's teammates wide open in this game, and they were all breaking those shots. And they lost by 1 point. From there, Wilt Chamberlain was always known as a loser. And that's where we're going to come up with this idea that Wilt Chamberlain's a loser. But again, it takes the Avengers to defeat him. It took a whole team. North Carolina was the number 1 ranked team at that time. But Wilt Chamberlain was completely misunderstood. And he would always be known as the guy that would never get his team above the hump. But because of the way they played him in college, he said, fuck my senior year. I'm going to go play for the Harlem Globetrotters. And that's where I believe Wilt Chamberlain learned all his skills to play the game of basketball. He was a phenomenal player. But he was misunderstood. He used to run summer leagues against the pros. And he used to play against people like Mike and them. And he used to give them the business at 16, 17, 15 years old. So Wilt Chamberlain was a beast. They couldn't wait to see him come into the league. He went to the Harlem Globetrotters. He did all of this stuff. He was a freak of nature. Anybody who saw him and who was in the game of basketball said to themselves, "Oh my God, this is it." He was a specimen. And this is the thing about being tall, because most people that are as tall as Wilt Chamberlain, they usually have some kind of disability or some kind of deformity of some sort. In general, it's a deformity to be that tall. Let's just keep it real. In the United States, less than 15% of men are above 6 feet tall. And it's less worldwide. So can you imagine what it's like to be 7 foot tall? How many people in the world are actually 7 feet tall? And I believe Wilt Chamberlain was 7'4", 7'5". He was listed at supposedly 7'1". But he was a misunderstood human being. He was completely misunderstood. And let me let you hear some of the comments about Wilt Chamberlain around his time by his peers, so you guys can understand how misunderstood it was to be Wilt Chamberlain.
Chamberlain was concerned about Chamberlain. He was in love with his stats.
I think showing his peers that he could score 50 a game, that he could get 24 rebounds, that he could get 8 assists. I think that was enough for Wilt to say, look, they're the numbers.
He was so great that no matter what he did, people never accepted it as being enough.
If you look at his records and the records that he set, I always thought it was like watching him in slow motion. I thought he could have even done more.
If you win, everybody says, well, look at him, he's that big. If you lose, it's, how could he lose a guy that size? I think it's confused him. He would have been better in an individual sport. He'd have been much better just competing for himself.
So you hear the words of his peers and people who watched him play at the time about how Wilt Chamberlain was. They said he was a guy who worried about his stats, as we hear Red Auerbach talk about. Now, mind you, Red Auerbach also got a chance to coach him when he was in high school as well, or ran across him several times before he made the NBA, right? But as you can see, he was great, and people had so many of their own vision of what Wilt Chamberlain was supposed to be. They never really cared about who Wilt Chamberlain was. And that was something Wilt Chamberlain noticed as a young man. He understood that. He understood that people saw him as a phenom, but he wanted to be known more than just a phenom. Even when he was in college and he was doing the stuff like the high jump and all this track and field things, that was stuff he was just doing just to show people I'm not just a basketball player. And he was great at that. And he was a freak of nature, man. Wilt Chamberlain was way ahead of his time. So by the time he entered the league, it was like, yo, what are you going to do? What it's all about? But y'all got to understand, it's always about Wilt Chamberlain's numbers. His numbers is crazy. When we talk about Wilt Chamberlain's numbers, the stats, that's what everybody wants to talk about, the stats. Wilt Chamberlain's numbers are ridiculous. Let's start off with the fact that Wilt Chamberlain averages 30.1 points per game. That's tied first with Michael Jordan. He averages the most rebounds per game in NBA history. He was the number 1 in assists per game for centers until Joker come around. He shot 54% from the field. You guys don't understand how good it is to shoot 54% in the 60s. When the league average was in the 40s. I mean, like in the 40s, like low 40s. The league didn't get an average of 40% till like 1961 or 1962. And then this is where you get it. In the postseason, everything changes. He averages 22.5 points per game, 24 rebounds. He still averages his 4 assists, and his field goal percentage go down. People always say, well, he was never that great in the playoffs. But I'm going to break that down. But Wilt Chamberlain retired with 31,000 points, which was a record that nobody thought anyone could beat till Kareem did it, which was about 10 years later to after Wilt Chamberlain retired. He's still number 1 in rebounds all time. He has over 4,500 assists, and he's played over 1,000 games in his NBA career. You can see what he did in the playoffs. And here in GOAT James Kingdom, like I tell you, we do go by stats, accolades, and achievements. To tell you why I got Wilt Chamberlain number 2. Because if we go to his accolades and achievements, right? He has 13 All-Stars in 14 years, 10 All-NBAs. He has 2 All-Defensive selections, which were only the last 5 years of his career were they available. He's a 4-time league MVP. He has a finals MVP. He has an all-star game MVP. He was the rookie of the year in 1960. He was a part of the 35th, 50th, and the 75th NBA teams, anniversary teams. And if we go to his achievements, we already know he has 7 scoring titles, 11 rebounding titles, 1 assist title. He has not. He led the league in field goal percentage 9 times in his NBA career. We know about his 50-point per game season. His over 27 rebounds per game season. The man averaged over 48 minutes per game in an NBA season. We know about the 100-point game, the 55 rebound game. He has the most 50-point games, 60-point games, 70-point games in NBA history. He has the most 20 rebound games, the most 30 rebound games, the most 40 rebound games. He was a part of a franchise and a team that won 33 straight NBA games, ladies and gentlemen, which still stands till this day. Not to mention, he won 3 MVPs in a row, which we all know only Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain, and Larry Bird and Wilt Chamberlain are the only people to do this in NBA history. So these are the things that and there's way much more. This is just the stuff that I just wanted to bring up. There's way much more about Wilt Chamberlain's career. The man led the league in games played, minutes played. He led the league in every statistical category besides free throw shooting, which everybody knows was his kryptonite. He was basically one of the worst free throw shooters in NBA history. But again, they changed rules because of Wilt Chamberlain. They changed the free throw rules for Wilt Chamberlain. You could not pass the free throw line because of Wilt Chamberlain on a free throw anymore. Because supposedly Wilt Chamberlain could dunk the ball taking 2 steps from the free throw line during a free throw. Those are all supposedly the legends that we always talk about with the 1900s. Because a lot of this stuff there's no film for this stuff. But either way, he was known for taking 2 steps and making a layup from the free throw line. So Tex Winters, who was a part of the competition committee, banned players and got them to basically ban players from being able to move in front of the free throw line while taking the free throw. So you had to stay behind the line because of Wilt Chamberlain. We know they changed the size of the paint because of Wilt Chamberlain. They had to widen the paint because Wilt Chamberlain was dominant. So they had to widen the paint from the free throw line. They widened the paint at the basket for Mikan, but then they widened it at the free throw line for Wilt Chamberlain. Then they also invented offensive goaltending because of Wilt Chamberlain, because he used to just take the ball out the air and just dunk it from anywhere. So they was like, nah, you can't do that. They created all kind of rules to stop this man from dominating the game of basketball. He was supremely dominant. In fact, let's let Wilt Chamberlain explain how dominant he was, right? Because that 100-point game is always something everybody talks about. Let's let Wilt Chamberlain talk about that 100-point game.
Let's talk about another number, all right? Let's talk about the number 100 points in one game, which I believe was versus the Knicks, 1962.
That's right. Yeah.
Is that right?
That's a long time ago. Right.
Was there a point, 100 points in one game, was there a point where just the other team left and made sandwiches on the bench? I mean,
well, I really wish it was. Actually, they were really very embarrassed about the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And so they were mad at me. and I was just out there trying to have fun.
Did you start to, like, at 85 points, did you start to feel bad a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And the people
I'll just try and miss this one, 100 points.
And I did that. I know. I did that. Then my mother scolded me when I got home. You should be ashamed of yourself. It was not an easy night.
No.
Yeah, because I had a lot of friends on the Knicks.
100 points, ladies and gentlemen. 100 points in one game. I know a lot of people, not a lot of people, but there are some, skeptics out there that'll say he didn't have that game, it didn't exist, blase, blah, blah, blah. Either way, he had a 100-point game. And to also talk about that, when he was talking about the Knicks were his friends, he actually rode home with the Knicks well, obviously not with the team, but with some of the teammates. They had to drive back to New York, and Wilt Chamberlain caught a ride with them. And his story is that while he was dozed off in the passenger seat, they were talking about how he was scoring 100 points on them, how they couldn't believe it because they were trying everything to keep him from scoring 100 points. And they didn't want him to break the record. They kept calling him all kind of names in the middle of the ride. And it's like a 2-3 hour ride from Pennsylvania to New York. So he overheard them as he was dozing in and out of sleep during the ride. And as he left, he told them, you know what? I'm still I'm still your best friend. I'm still good with you guys, even though I'm an SOB. Y'all have a good night. You know what I'm saying? So Wilt Chamberlain was a freak of nature. He was doing things like that. That was the 1962 season. And with all of this that I'm mentioning, I'm not even mentioning the defensive stats. Because if we really bring up the defensive stats, it's not even close when we talk about Wilt Chamberlain. For the 112 games that we have of Wilt Chamberlain that was available for people to actually watch, they documented that Wilt Chamberlain averaged 8.8 blocks per game in those 112 games, which were all games later in his career. None of the stuff that he did. So if we're talking about blocks and steals, forget about it. Wilt Chamberlain, put it like this, for me, there's only one player that's a better defender than Wilt Chamberlain all time, and that's Bill Russell. And there's nobody who's a better rim protector than Wilt Chamberlain in NBA history. He's the greatest rim protector paint guy in NBA history. Bill Russell does a lot more than just protect the paint. But what Wilt Chamberlain does is not even close. He would easily have maybe 8,000 blocks for his NBA career. That's not even that's double the size of what Akeem Olajuwon has. Like, his defensive prowess alone shows you how great of a player he was. I mean, y'all think I'm joking? Like I told y'all, this is the Friday Night Exposure with the Exposer. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Y'all know what we do best. Let's show y'all how great Wilt Chamberlain was defensively.
Great shot by Chamberlain. Jones, 3-on-2. Russell, blocked by Chamberlain. A great block by Chamberlain. Two great plays by Wilt Chamberlain.
Now let's watch his defense.
He's going to challenge Wilt. He does. Wilt fly swats it right down his throat.
Jumps it up over Wilt. Wilt blocks it. That's 4 block shots for Chamberlain. Chamberlain blocked it. Great play by Chamberlain. Chamberlain gets the ball. Nice play.
Trying to get it up over Chamberlain. He drives it down his throat.
The Heights, and he's deep. Blocked by Chamberlain.
He switches to Krebs. Blocks the shot.
Sam Jones. Good block by Chamberlain.
It's a 3-inch height advantage. Chamberlain got just enough of it.
Havlicek blocked, and Chamberlain has the rebound.
Gonna drive over Chamberlain. Wilt snaps it out of there. Good block by Chamberlain. Penetrates, gives to Jackson. Chamberlain blocks it.
Put it up again. Chamberlain slaps it out. That's 7 times Wilt's blocked shots tonight.
Then on Wilt, puts it up. Wilt knocks it down.
Whew. Man, and they were actually saying that, like, he blocked shots, but they wasn't even recording it. They wasn't even recording how many times he was just sending people stuff. You couldn't come in the paint. So when we talk about Wilt Chamberlain, this is the mythos of everything that we say with Wilt Chamberlain. He was dominant in every facet of the game. And I know a lot of y'all say, oh, he was just tall. He was just bigger than everybody. He didn't have to do that. He just kept dunking in. That's all he was. Y'all don't know the game of basketball if you think that's what Wilt Chamberlain's game was. He was ahead of his time. He changed the game of basketball forever. It was no more sloppy big men. He showed y'all what a big man is supposed to look like. He was doing stuff like this.
Wilt Chamberlain. Oh, how about that?
Wilt still tries it. And in she goes. Chamberlain turns and shoots outside. Good.
There's somebody going through the middle. Nobody goes. Wilt takes it in himself. Puts it in there.
Wilt did not go in and bump and dislodge people. That was not his game. And if you remember, the main point is 60% or more of Wilt's shots came on fadeaways.
Chamberlain is the greatest scoring machine the game has ever known, and he can score on you in dozens of ways. Here's one you can't stop, the fall-away jumper. And he hits this repeatedly, despite good defense. That fall-away jumper just cannot be stopped. Beautiful.
When this giant walks out on the floor, the 76ers automatically have a great number of points.
Unbelievable shot, Pete. If he gets that close to the basket, I don't see how anyone can stop him.
I think with his...
Listen, y'all. The man invented the fadeaway. I hear a lot of talk about how somebody has to have a decent fadeaway or mid-range game. Wilt Chamberlain was doing that ahead of his time. Remember, the big men were not supposed to be out there shooting balls like that. Why are you out there shooting 15-footers, 18-footers, fadeaways at that, bank shots? Remember, he's a freak of nature. There was no coach was going to accept this. This is what he could do on a night-in, night-to-night basis. Not to mention, when he gets the rebound, he can run up the floor. He can do everything. He can do everything on the basketball court. Legitimately, he can do everything. He would have steals titles, block titles. He has an assist title. We already know this. There's only one thing Wilt Chamberlain was known for not being able to do, and that is shoot free throws. He was ahead of his time. But the thing about him, like I said, he is a misunderstood individual. Wilt Chamberlain is a misunderstood individual. When we talk about Wilt Chamberlain, let's do this, all right? Let's do this. I always like to tell people there are two Wilt Chamberlains. There is the Wilt Chamberlain from 1960 to 1966. This is the Wilt Chamberlain, the myth that everybody knows. This is the Thanos Wilt Chamberlain. He averaged damn near 40 points per game, about 25 rebounds on 3.5 assists, shooting 52% from the field. But mind y'all, he was taking 31 attempts per game. Now, they used to play at 120 plus possession pace back then in the NBA. So it was a lot of up and down basketball, 31 attempts. And again, he was playing 48 minutes. His career numbers is 46 minutes per game. Wilt Chamberlain just missed about just over 2 minutes per game for his career. But during that same span, he went in the playoffs, and within that, in those same years, between 1960 and 1966, he averaged about 33 points per game on 26 rebounds, on 3 assists per game, shooting 50.5% from the field. But again, you can see his field goal attempts went down, which happens in the playoffs, right? The pace can slow down in the playoffs, things can change, but you can see he was still dominant. This is what I call the Wilt Chamberlain that we all know. This is the Wilt Chamberlain that's the myth, the legends. All the stories we heard of Wilt Chamberlain comes from this. The 1962 season, the 50-point season, points per game season, the 100-point games. All of this is within this span. This is all we know about Wilt Chamberlain, his dominance, everything that y'all just saw. But then there's this Wilt Chamberlain. There's the second Wilt Chamberlain. The guy that completely changed his game to help his team because he was told all of that dominance you're doing didn't amount to nothing because he didn't win an NBA championship. In fact, between 1960 and 1966, he only won 2 MVPs, which wasn't even the most within that span. But when you get to 1967 and on, you get a whole different Wilt Chamberlain. Basically, after 1966, Wilt Chamberlain's coach asked him to stop scoring and said, please, we don't need you to score. Can you do everything else? He said, fine, coach, I got you. For the next 2 seasons, between 1967 and 1968, Wilt Chamberlain averaged 24 points, 24 rebounds on 63.5% shooting from the field. As you can see, Wilt Chamberlain points per game did drop. But as you notice, it's because he just stopped shooting the ball. He started doing everything else on the basketball court, which he was already doing before. He was already blocking shots. He was already stealing things. The difference was now he was allowing his teammates to be more involved in the game. And he had opportunities to do that because, again, the way Wilt Chamberlain's career was crazy. But again, these are two separate Wilt Chamberlains. Either or should be in your top 10. That's just dominance. You can't tell me somebody averaging 20 and 21, shooting 62% from the field in an era where most people were shooting under 40%. We even had Gilbert Arenas making fun of Bill Russell, who shot about, 44% for his career? Because that would be horrible. But back then, that was great. So imagine shooting 62% in that era. That's how great Wilt Chamberlain was. But that's why he's misunderstood. He was that dominant of a player. He was ahead of his time. All the things that we hear about players and all the legends, the myth, everything. Did Wilt Chamberlain have a weakness? His only weakness was free throws. And if you let him tell you, he can make free throws. He just didn't care for them. And I don't blame him. They changed the rules on him. He was able to just dunk it from the free throw line. They had to change it. Like, could you imagine you're playing the game and they just around here trying to figure out ways to stop you from doing what you're doing on the basketball court? So, and another thing about Wilt Chamberlain, with all of this, he understood his power. He understood everything. He was considered to be a nice person. They said that he was super nice. They said that they used to take advantage of Wilt Chamberlain because he was so nice. They knew that he wasn't going to hurt them or he wouldn't do certain things. Matter of fact, Wilt Chamberlain never fouled out of a professional basketball game in his NBA career. And mostly partly because he didn't want to catch a lot of offensive fouls. If you watch the footage that we were watching of those highlights, you don't see him, like he said, bodying people and pushing people away, because back then that was illegal. You couldn't do that. You couldn't move a defender out of the way by backing him down. That's why he invented the fadeaway. That's why Kareem had the hook shot. Because these were shots that you can take because you couldn't just body your way past your man or whatever. You had to legitimately have the skills to do things. That stuff came later on in the 80s and the 90s. But as you can see, there's no hand checking. The defense is standing between your man and the goal, keeping your feet active and your hands active. Hands up and sideways. That's how you play defense. That's how they were taught. But with all of that, Wilt Chamberlain was able to dominate. But we all know what Wilt Chamberlain's kryptonite was. We really know. It wasn't really his free throw shooting. Like I told you, he is Thanos. And you need the Avengers to defeat him. You actually do need the Avengers to defeat him. So what stops everybody from destroying Wilt Chamberlain in general? Like I said, you need the Avengers. And we all know the Avengers was Bill Russell's Celtics. That's what everybody's going to bring up, how he couldn't win against Bill Russell, how he couldn't win in that era. We heard Wally a couple weeks ago mention the same thing during this whole era. Bill Russell dominated. We all know Bill Russell won 9 championships throughout the 60s. He beat Wilt Chamberlain countless times throughout the 60s. And that's what's held against Wilt Chamberlain. But he's a freak of nature. I mean, here's one of my favorite footages of Wilt Chamberlain. This is Wilt Chamberlain messing around in practice to show you how great Wilt Chamberlain was. Shout out to FYF Sports for this clip right here.
I'm going to tell you something. As bad as it looked, you didn't miss by that much.
No, it was on top of the ball.
You see me make 2 in a row. No, I had to sample up fast. There you go. I'm good for $5. I just made the last 3 of them. I don't care. This is the one I'm talking about for $5. Get up! Get up!
That's just him playing around in practice. Just playing around. That's what Wilt Chamberlain was doing. Like he was a freak of nature, misunderstood without everything. But again, Bill Russell Celtics was his kryptonite. And I even realized this, and I didn't notice till recently, was that, okay, he was drafted by the Philadelphia Warriors. Wilt Chamberlain was drafted by the Philadelphia Warriors. In 1962, they left, after the 62 season, they left and went to San Francisco. Right? So can you imagine, you're the star of the league, you're one of the prominent players, and at the end of the day, you're on a franchise that has to move. Now, for whatever reasons they move, we all know if a franchise moves, it's not a good thing. There obviously a lot of changes. There's a lot of instability within that franchise. So he goes there, and then 2.5 years later, they trade him back to Philadelphia, and the Philadelphia become the Philadelphia 76ers, but they were another franchise in Syracuse somewhere. So they're a new franchise, and he goes to Philadelphia. And he's there for a couple of years and dominates the league then. Then he gets traded to the Lakers and ends out his career with the Lakers. And obviously we know the Lakers is a more stable franchise. But he was playing with franchises with coaches that didn't like him, franchises that didn't know what to do with him. They basically told Wilt Chamberlain, stay out there and play. That's why he was kept playing. That's why he was playing 48 minutes in the game. Because they were like, people are here to see him play, let him play. Don't take him out of a game. And he would sit there and play the entire game. Bro, it still blows my mind that somebody averages more than 48 minutes per game in the NBA season. That means the man played every minute of the NBA season, including any games that went to overtime. That's crazy to think about, especially when they were playing back-to-back games. Sometimes they were playing 5 games within a 7-game span. Taking road trips too. There's no bus, there's no team buses, there's no team planes, meals. There's none of that stuff. None of that crazy stuff. But that's what Wilt Chamberlain was doing. That's why I call him Thanos. Because Wilt Chamberlain needed the Celtics to basically beat him. But let's break down the Celtics series, right? Because we all know that he lost to the Celtics countless times. He faced the Celtics 8 times in the playoffs. He's only beat the Celtics 1 out of those 8 matchups. So he's 1-7 versus the Celtics and Bill Russell Celtics. But again, if we look in the 1960 series versus Boston, he averaged 30 and 27 on 50% shooting. 1962, which was that great NBA season where he did average 50 points per game, he averaged 33 points on 27 rebounds on 47% shooting. Then in 1964, in the finals, he averaged 29 and 27 on 52% shooting. Then he averaged 30 and 31 the next time he faced him the next year. Then he faced him again the next season and averaged 28 and 30. So Wilt Chamberlain was balling in all of these series. Then he went and he started doing like we always tell y'all, there's 2 separate Wilt Chamberlains. He went to start doing other things, and this is where he averaged a triple-double versus Boston, and they beat Boston in 5 games in 1967, and they end up winning the NBA championship. After beating Boston, they go on to win the championship in the next round. And then in 1968, they go into Game 7, and they lose that Game 7. But Wilt Chamberlain balls out, and in 1969, we all know what happened in 1969. The Celtics end up winning that series as well. But within the Boston series, throughout Boston, playing against Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain averaged 26 points per game, 27 rebounds per game on 51% shooting, and averaging 4 assists per game, and he was only taking 19 shots per game versus them. So all this idea that he crumbled or that he didn't play the game well versus them, obviously he was a baller versus this team. But like I told you, there's 2 separate Wilt Chamberlains. The Wilt Chamberlain that faced them during his prime when he was doing what Wilt Chamberlain normally does, he averaged 30-29 versus Boston. And he was taking less shots. Like I told people, he wasn't taking his 30 shots per game. If he's taking 30 shots, he's going to average the 40 points he was averaging during that same time, during that same span. But he's playing against the greatest defender of all time. One of the greatest defensive teams of all time. Let's not forget that Bill Russell did have K.C. Jones. He did have Tom Sanders. He did have Sam Jones. These guys were all considered great defenders. But if you look to the right, during that same span between 1960 and 1966 versus all the other teams, Wilt Chamberlain averaged 36 points per game and 23 rebounds. But he was taking 29 shots per game versus those teams. So you can see the difference between when he plays Boston and when he's playing somebody else. Obviously, he's not going to be able to get as many shots as he wants versus Bill Russell as he does versus everybody else in the league. But then, like I told y'all, that second stint of Wilt Chamberlain's career when he decided to be a teammate between 1967 and 1969, he averaged 18 points per game, 24 rebounds, 6 assists, but he only was taking 13 shots per game. His game completely changed. And versus other people during that same span, he was averaging 20 points per game, 25 rebounds on 5.5 assists, taking 14 shots per game. So Wilt Chamberlain wasn't never choking like they like to say he choked. And it's funny that they say that he choked because we remember a few weeks ago, we had a program and we talked about the differentials between what players are expected to do and what people want them to do and what they actually did. And a lot of people were saying, nah, still dominant. You can't tell me that Wilt Chamberlain's not dominant here. Who was outplaying Wilt Chamberlain in these series? Nobody. But he was facing Bill Russell and the Celtics. They were just a great team. And that's what it took to beat Wilt Chamberlain. That's what it took to beat him in college. That's what it took to beat him in his professional career. But when Wilt Chamberlain retired, not only did he have the all-time scoring record, he had the all-time rebounding record, right? He also had the teams with the two best records in NBA history, which was the 1972 Lakers and the 1967 Sixers, which won 69 and 68 games respectively. He was the only person to beat Bill Russell while Bill Russell was completely healthy. And in fact, when he retired, only him, the Knicks, the Celtics, and the Mikan Lakers can say they were multiple champions. So Wilt Chamberlain's career is completely solidified. As of 1974, from there on out, he was a complete myth, a legend. There was nobody touching him. Now, Kareem eventually came along and surpassed him in a lot of categories. But Wilt Chamberlain was dominant beyond dominant. He was what I can say, like I said, he was Thanos, man. He was just Thanos. But he got popular later on during the 90s because obviously the NBA became a very popular league. And Wilt Chamberlain and them were used to help promote the league as well because you have to let people know the history of the game. So when they used to do little interviews, this is an interview of him. And again, they used to always ask him silly questions about what he would do if he played in the 90s. So let's let Wilt Chamberlain now, mind you, Wilt Chamberlain almost played in the 80s. They were going to sign him in the late 80s to play, I think, the end of the season, maybe 20 games or something like that. And they were going to give him a nice little chunk of change to do it as well. But he turned it down because he didn't want to be considered a gimmick. But again, he was phenomenal. Wilt Chamberlain was phenomenal. Let's let Wilt Chamberlain explain what he would have did to the 90s for y'all who don't know who Wilt Chamberlain is.
If you were playing today, how would you fare against today's centers?
That would be dishonest.
I would think that
that'd be a license to steal.
I'm happy that I have a big mouth because I can say it's on my own, Bill. It wouldn't be a license to steal. You're right. I would love it. Oh, are you kidding me? I mean, it would be a joke.
But wait a minute, what about against the Elijah ones?
He's quicker than I am, but I believe I'm faster than he is, or was at one time. I'm still pretty fast. No, but I just don't know of any center of the day that really. The best centers I played against, starting right here, were all back in yesteryear. I mean, you want to talk about Nate Thurman, Willis Reed. You understand?
Y'all hear that man talking? You hear that man talking? Again, he can say these things, man. Wilt Chamberlain has done things that nobody will ever do in the game of basketball. He will be in the record books forever. Just like we all remember Thanos snapping his fingers and half of the universe disappeared, just that simple. That we all gonna remember that day when we watched that movie. We all sat there, we all watched the Endgame. It's one of the most grossing movies of all time. So don't tell me you ain't watch it. That's what he was. And if y'all thought that he was the only one talking about the 90s like that, let's let Bill Russell get his chance because they're going to ask Bill Russell as well, too. What would he do against these guys in the 90s?
I really am interested. How would you play Shaquille O'Neal, a player like Shaquille O'Neal?
Yeah, I'm interested in that myself.
Well, first of all, if you want me to be serious for a minute.
Yes.
I would make him play horizontal as much as possible. Plus, I would make him have to run up and down the court all day. I figure if I weigh 240 and he weighs 340, and if he has to carry that whatever it is, up and down every time at a rapid rate, that the fatigue factor becomes part of it.
You know, you take guys out of your comfort zone. I wonder how Bill would play someone as big and strong and as fast as Shaquille. And he's right. You know, first of all, you just find the things that he does the worst, and those are the things you try to make him do the most.
So he just answered the question for you.
Yeah, I said I did it in a much shorter, more succinct manner.
Yeah, he's far more articulate.
So, again, the NBA has always been a big man's league. It's always been a big man league. We all know how that changed and why today's NBA is different than what it was. But at the end of the day, you can see that these are legends that we're talking about here. Like Wilt Chamberlain, like I said, he changed the game of basketball as well. He actually allowed the small ball to exist as well, because by them widening the paint, because of Wilt Chamberlain, it allowed guards to be more effective because it was harder to get your shot in the paint, because the 3-second rule for offenses always existed in the NBA. So the big man didn't get the ball as close to the rim as before. So getting that perimeter shot, like I told y'all back then, which was the mid-range, having that shot was very important, which basically gave the guards an actual task in the game of basketball besides just dribbling and passing the ball in the perimeter. So Wilt Chamberlain changed the game. Guys like Sam Jones and Gail Goodrich, all these guys that we saw hitting these outside jumpers during those times should all give their credit to Wilt Chamberlain. I mean, the guy, again, he's a phenomenon. That's why I got him second all time. And technically, if we really want to count everything that existed in NBA history, if they did count everything that existed, for him, he would have everything. There would be nothing Wilt Chamberlain wouldn't have. And it would be hard to not say he's not the GOAT, other than the idea of the pass down. So it would go from Wilt Chamberlain to Kareem to Mike to LeBron. Like, that's the only way you would have to take the throne away from Wilt Chamberlain. But if we were objective and just looking at Wilt Chamberlain's career for what it was, with everything and add everything that he would have had, it would have been hard for anybody, including me, to say that anybody's better than Wilt Chamberlain at the game of basketball. Let's let Wilt Chamberlain continue, because I like them talking, man. I love all this old school stuff. Like I said, I'm a historian. Y'all hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'm about to put the link up here very shortly, because I know y'all got a lot to say, and I can't wait to hear everybody's takes on this. So again, this is the Friday Night Exposure with the Exposer. Thank you for joining me again. We are live directly off of the GOAT James Kingdom channel. We're also going live off the FYF Sports Debate channel on YouTube. You guys know what we do here best. We talk the game. I'm giving y'all Wilt Chamberlain at his finest. If you don't like Wilt Chamberlain, I don't think you like the game of basketball. Let's let him talk some more.
If you were playing today, how many points would you average, you think?
In what, today, right now?
No, not right now. I mean,
because I could get maybe 30 right now, big fella. I'm trying to tell you.
At 60.
Yeah, 30 and 60, you cut that in half. Yes, sir. But at 30,
I called him on his birthday.
Get 30, but at 30, I could probably average 60 or 70. Yeah, and I mean, I'm saying that. I'm saying that politely. I'm not trying to just, I'm not trying to dismantle your belief on how great the athlete of today is. But the game would best suit me. Believe me, it would best suit me.
Same with you, Bill. Game.
My advantage would be, is like, for example, when the Bulls won the championship this year, they were able to nullify the centers.
Mm-hmm.
But see, my center position, I played defense more than offense. So that would not work on me.
About that.
You understand what I'm talking about?
Let me hear. He talks long on his points. That's why
Man, that boy Wilt Chamberlain said, man, I can average 30 right now at 60. And again, he used to criticize the 90s a lot. They used to tell him this is a different game. This is a very different game. And Bill Russell made very good sense when he was saying about how he dominates the game defensively. So he's not and that was one thing about Bill Russell. Bill Russell always said that the way he played the game, he would never affect it negatively in any way, because he's going to be great defensively. You're never going to have an issue there. And the fact that he doesn't require shots or anything like that, now he can score if you need him to, doesn't hurt your offense. So he can play within any kind of offense. But, man, they were great to have. But Wilt Chamberlain used to criticize the 90s. He used to always say how he would dominate the 90s because he said that they were soft. And that the type of rules that they had would have definitely been great for him. He would have been like, man, I'd dominate. Let's let him talk to Bill Costas, because we know Bill Costas is the man. Let's let Wilt Chamberlain explain how dominant he would have been in the 90s and why the 90s was weak.
The 25-year-old Wilt Chamberlain transplanted into today's NBA. What do you do?
Well,
you can take Russell with you.
It's simple for me. It may be a little different for Russ, but simple for me. I think it'd be as easy for Russ. You see, with the new rules, which are all slant to help the offense. Now, when I get the ball, instead of having 2 and 3 people and Russ all at me at the same time, I'm by myself with one guy. I would love it. I would love it. 50 points, maybe 60 points, maybe 70 points a game. Because I have nobody. Wait a minute. Well, you asked me a question, right?
70 a game.
Well, you know, the last 10 games, I was talking to Russ about the last 10 games of my 61-62 season, right before I scored 100 points, I averaged about 71 points a game.
Yeah, you were on a rampage.
Yeah, but I'm saying to you, but it's easier now. I was too fast. I was too strong. One guy is not going to take me down in that particular way. The best basketball athletes I've ever seen played in the 50s and 60s.
Yo, that man been taking shots. I mean, taking shots. That man said the best athletes I seen was in the 50s and the 60s, which I highly doubt. I really do highly doubt that. But again, it was a different game when he played compared to the 90s. Like I always told y'all, the difference between 1963 and 1993 is the same as 2023 to 1993. So that was a long time ago when he was dominating the league. And he still like, I'll score 60, I'll do all of this stuff. Again, he was that great. Again, we showed you footage of what Wilt Chamberlain could do with the basketball. He was great at the game of basketball. There was nothing he couldn't do besides shoot a free throw. He was horrible at that. But let's let him criticize the 90s some more because he started going in about the 90s teams. This is the late 90s when they were promoting the 50 anniversary team. So he was public. You know, he had several books that came out in the 90s. So he was obviously promoting his books as well. But let's let Wilt Chamberlain explain why the 90s teams were horrible as well.
But I don't see that basketball is necessarily crumbling when you talk about some of the problems. But before we take the break, in your book, Who's Running the Asylum, you talk about a number of issues. Are there any solutions that you can rattle off?
Oh, yeah, but when I say crumbling, you mean to think there's parity? There's 8 or 9 teams out there last year who played 300 ball or less. I've never seen that when I was a player. If that's not crumbling, I don't know what is crumbling. You understand? So yeah, there is a way to have a solution. When you have new teams coming to the league, give them a chance to have better people on their team. They have a grab bag situation, which they throw in the 3 or 4 worst guys from each team into a grab bag, and one guy is picked to be on each of the teams, the new teams. Well, how about only being able to hold 5 guys back on each team and give something good in that grab bag so the new teams can start off with some good players. And that's one way to solve some of the problems of non-parity.
So Wilt Chamberlain thought the expansion was bad as well for the league, which is kind of funny because he played in an expansion era as well. But again, the NBA was also different then, right? Because the difference between the expansion of the late 60s and early 70s compared to the 90s was that there was a larger pool of players available to actually join the NBA, right? And the reason the NBA actually had to expand was because there was another professional basketball league called the American Basketball Association, the ABA. That's how many good basketball players were left over that couldn't be in the NBA at that time, that there were enough good guys to go start an entire another league. So when the league was expanding, they were just snatching up players from the ABA so that the ABA wouldn't get players. So that was the large pool. The 90s was different. There wasn't a large pool of non-basketball players that wasn't in the NBA in the 90s. That's why in the 90s they started going after high school players and foreign players, because that was where the pool of getting players were coming from. Not just a bunch of guys who were just not good enough to make the NBA at that time, just like back then, but still were good basketball players, good enough to start another league. You couldn't have started another basketball league in the mid-90s. So that was the big difference between the expansion team. But Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell and them were legends of the game. They should be in your top 5. Again, I have Wilt Chamberlain at number 2. Bill Russell's number 5 on my list. But let's let them tell you who their top 5 is.
Put together your top 5 players, excluding yourself and excluding Bill.
Yeah, well, okay. Larry Bird and let's see, Larry Bird, and I got to go with Jerry, Oscar, and Elgin, and probably Jordan or Magic. 6. You got to give me 6.
And yours, Bill?
Well, now you said
I have 7 and put Sir Charles in there. Sir Charles is my favorite.
No, you get 6.
Okay, I'll
if he's
take
your
6.
favorite, you have to replace somebody.
Okay, I have to make him replace somebody then.
Okay, you 6 players?
I'll give you 6 players, yeah.
And I can't name him?
No.
Magic and Michael. Larry. Baylor. Oscar. And probably either Elijah Warren or Pettit.
Pretty good group.
I don't know if y'all noticed that. They didn't say Kareem. They must have had a real disdain for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I'm going to need some of you historians to come up here and explain this to me. So I did put the link up for you guys. It's in the chat. You are more than welcome to have a conversation with the Exposer. I do one-on-ones. We're going to have a one-on-one. So please be respectful and be patient as we'll have another great show. But also hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber to the channels, and also check out the membership at GOAT James Kingdom or FYF and all the different perks for becoming a member of the channel and supporting us and what we do here when we talk about the game of basketball, because we know there's a lot of basketball content out there that doesn't explain the game. And I hope tonight I was able to explain to you what Wilt Chamberlain means to the game of basketball, and what Wilt Chamberlain actually means in general when they talk about greatness. He is, like I said, he should be the true GOAT. The only reason he's not the GOAT is because LeBron James is around. That's just the facts. That's how great Wilt Chamberlain is, that we need to have someone like LeBron James show up.
LeBron.
That's just the facts. But again, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Friday Night Exposure with the Exposer. You guys are more than welcome to come give me some more history, some more history about Wilt Chamberlain. What do you know about Wilt Chamberlain that I didn't get a chance to break down? Because at the end of the day, that man's career is untouchable. Like, it is untouchable. Even with the ideas of him losing to Bill Russell as much as he did, you can see why. You can see why. The game is not that... It's not that hard to understand. He is definitely, like I said, man, he is definitely top 5. I know some people who won't even put him in their top 10. I've seen lists without him in the top 10, and it's blasphemy. It's straight blasphemy. Wilt Chamberlain's a legend. Let me let Peter up here right quick. What up, Peter? Thank you for joining me, man. Thank you for coming on the Friday Night Exposure with the Exposer. What is your take tonight on Wilt Chamberlain and his career?
Go James, my fellow Miamian, man. Really enjoying the show, bro. I could tell you take time to put your stuff together.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
For sure. I want to have this conversation in the most respectful way possible. First of all, I'm only 42. I didn't see the man play. Both of us are far removed from actually witnessing these people play, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm just gonna put it out there, from the information that I have at hand, to why I don't really. I look at Wilt as a dude who wilted in the playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. Now, 22 points per game in the playoffs. You already mentioned that he changed his game up or whatever, but it's 2 playoff series for me. And I know you a big stat dude, and that's why you love LeBron and Wilt. My value system a little different, bro. I'm on my Herm Edwards shit. You played to win the game. What did you do in the biggest games, bro? When it was on the line, when it was winning time, bro. Mm-hmm. And I have a big issue with the 69 finals and the 70 finals. Now, if it's some 70-year-old dude out there, 80-year-old dude that could perhaps give me some context that I'm missing, because you know what I'm saying? Because it's just like when we talk about like LeBron 2011 finals, right? 50 years from now, let's say it wasn't no video around, somebody like a 40-year-old 50 years from now wouldn't know that perhaps what kind of defense was being ran, and if a nigga had an injury, and little context. You get what I'm saying, James?
I got you. I'm listening. Mm-hmm.
Right. So my issue with that 69 finals, bro, the man dropped 45 when homeboy got injured. Willis Reed, right? I think it was game 6. He dropped 45, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The game before, 45. It was another game. Yeah, it was another game. score. This is a box score watching, right? It was another game. Willis Reed played, I think, like 8 minutes, and I think Wilt had like. I gotta look at the box score again, but
21 and 24 in that game.
That was the game. Dude played 8 minutes.
Game 7. You know, do you know who dominated?
No,
you know who dominated that game 7? You know who dominated that game 7?
Who? Nate Thurman? Who?
No, Walt Frazier. Walt Frazier went on for 37 points and 19 assists in that game.
Yeah, I gotta look at that box score again. But
you can go ahead, continue because I'm gonna bring you up shortly, Ralph. I got Herman, then I got you up there. I got you next, Ralph. Ralph is saying here in the comments, he's saying, and remember, in that 1970 season, Wilt Chamberlain was hurt and he came back early from injury to actually play in that and during that playoff run to get them in the finals again. And like you said, in that game 6 when they were down 3-2, he showed up with a 45-25 game and balled out. And
that's
that
what
game,
I'm saying, though.
Yeah, even in that game 7 as well, he showed up in game 7 as well.
But that's what dude hurt. So for me, the fact that you could put up 45 when the man hurt, that means you got the ability to take them shots, right, and score them type of points. So, but if you putting up 13s and 17s. And the biggest thing that you're reputed for is your scoring. I gotta dock you, bro. I got to.
But no, but that's not. But no. See, that's where you're wrong. He wasn't known for scoring then. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. His scoring was told. He was told to no longer score the game of basketball. Remember, I told you there was 2 Wilt Chamberlains. At that time in his career, he was taking 12 shots, 13 shots per game. He was not shooting them.
I've heard this narrative for a long time on, being on basketball forums and all that. So, but let me move on because I want to get some other guys to get in. But let me get on the 70 series, right?
Go ahead.
Real quick. 3 single-digit games in a 7-game series, bruh. Including one game, you had 8 points and your team lost by 1 point, bruh. Right?
What game was that?
I think it was game.
What game was that?
I want to say that's game 5, 4, something like that. I don't know. And this is with him having, according to him, 2 top 5 players in Jerry West and Elgin Baylor balling. And the other Egan dude had a good ass game that game too. I don't know who that is, but bruh, I'm just saying this, bro. I want to be as respectful as I can to the patriarchs and the, you know what I'm saying, the originators
to the elder statesmen, the legends of the game.
Right, I want to be as respectful as I can, but the discussion is go conversation. So we measuring him against the Jordans and the Kareems.
No. You're measuring them to Wilt. Don't ever do that ever in your life. You are measuring them to Wilt Chamberlain. Norman Chamberlain. That's who you're measuring them to. That's who you're measuring them to. Remember that.
I got you, brother. 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But I'm going to wrap it up right now. This is all I'm going to say. If it was anybody else in this top 10 list, Hakeem, George, whoever you want to name, and you have 3 single-digit games in a 7-game series, brother,
you still got to point out that series because I didn't see it. The ones I'm looking at right now, I don't know which 7-game series where he was doing that.
1970 finals. He had 2 8-point games and a 4-point game, and they won the game. He scored 4 points. They won.
But that's what I'm saying. Look, I'm looking at it right now. In this series right here, Wilt Chamberlain averaged 23 points per game, 24 rebounds per game, shooting 62.5% from the field, my friend. I don't think you know what you're talking about when we're talking about Wilt Chamberlain.
Overall averages, though, James. I said he had 3
He didn't have those 3 games because in game 4 he had 45 points. In game 6 he had 45 points. Game 4 he had 22 points.
No, you're looking at the 69 finals.
And game finals. No, I'm looking at 1970. This is versus the Knicks. In game 4 he had 18 points. Okay, let's go to game 3. In Game 3, Wilt Chamberlain had 21 points. Again, whoever's telling you this stuff are liars, and I'm glad you came on Friday Night Exposure to be exposed. Game 2, he had 19 points.
I'm looking at Basketball Reference. I'm talking about the
No.
68. James,
So you talking about
James.
69 or 60?
70, bro. Basketball
Yes.
Reference.
That's the 1970 finals. I'm looking at it right now. Game 1, Wilt Chamberlain had 17 points. Game 2, Wilt Chamberlain had 19 points.
I got it mixed up. It's the 68-69 finals when they played Boston. He had them 3 single-digit games. I got that and the Knicks finals crossed up. It's the 69 finals. They went to 7 games with Celtics. He had 3 single-digit games. He out there, bro. And then he's talking about here average 70. And, man, get out of here, man. I'm out though.
All right, y'all. Y'all know who that is. That's Peter. Let me let Herm up. Shout out to Herm. Appreciate you, Herm, for joining me here on another Friday Night Exposure with the Exposer. Why these dudes doing this about him? This man picked 3 games out of Wilt Chamberlain's career to say Wilt Chamberlain cannot be in the top, 5? Is that the conversation?
He capping, man.
That is crazy. But go ahead, Herm. Let him know what's going on, brother, while I go look up this information.
For sure. Nah, but he never scored. He never had a single point game in the NBA Finals, so you don't have to look that up. He never had that bad of performances, so you don't have to look that up. Before Wilt Chamberlain, it's mighty odd. Well, it's not odd. It's actually not surprising that you would do this, because Wilt Chamberlain, I think you did it because Wilt Chamberlain and LeBron James have a whole lot of similarities. They are more alike. They are more alike than what people realize. So, but that being said, they are both physical specimens that really nobody has never seen in the game. Let's think about that. Wilt was a 7'2" guy, a guy that was benching, that power bench pressed the most of in NBA history, according to the stories of legends. We don't know for sure back then, but they were saying he was one of the strongest guys ever to lace him up. Wilt Chamberlain had hella game. He had touch. Wilt Chamberlain was shooting fadeaways and everything back in those times. And his film on that. But they both are physical specimens we never seen in the game. We understand how great they are. Wilt was breaking all types of records like LeBron James is breaking records right now. But end of the day, when it comes to those guys, when it comes to individual accolades, individual stats, Wilt and LeBron's the best of them when it comes to that. So I can understand your comparison. I can understand why you're driving this to the point. But when it comes down to certain moments, they have had moments in their careers that they wilted away, that they folded, that they underperformed, or they got outperformed. Wilt Chamberlain, unfortunately, in his career, was outperformed a lot by somebody at his position, Bill Russell. Bill Russell is not the best scorer in the world, but for some reason, when they faced off in a lot of finals, Bill Russell was getting 20-20s, but getting 20 points or 20 rebounds in the game 7s. Bill Russell was outplaying them in some of those moments into where Wilt Chamberlain didn't come through for his team. Wilt Chamberlain did form a super team with the Los Angeles Lakers like LeBron formed in Miami when he joined up with Jerry West and Elgin Baylor. They did have that, and guess what? The Los Angeles Lakers, they ultimately won one, but initially they was getting their butts whooped left and right till they finally got that one in '71. They finally won one. But end of the day, Wilt was ahead of his time. It's just unfortunate for him. It wasn't that many greats at his position other than him and Bill Russell. Later on, when he wasn't in his prime, he faced Kareem, of course, and Kareem gave him work. Wilt gave him work too, but Wilt obviously wasn't the same guy. So people really don't realize the greatness of Wilt. Before it's the GOAT conversation, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to put him over Kareem. You got to think about it. You got to think about how special Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was, especially in his prime. But end of the day, he is one of the greats. Now, if you got a top 10, I think he deserved to be in the top 10. But if he's out of the top 10, he could be anywhere like people would do with Kobe Bryant between 10 and 15. But I do understand your comparison because Wilt Chamberlain and LeBron James are more similar than what people are, than what people realize. Before it's the GOAT conversation, hell no, he's not the GOAT, man. You can't put him. If that's the case, you got to put Jerry West in the fold, man. Will can't be in the GOAT conversation, man.
Oh, leave it up to Hollywood Herm. Leave it up to Hollywood Herm.
Hey, we go off your criteria, though, to how you look at things. Yes, he's in the GOAT conversation because he will push your LeBron James propaganda that you push. So I understand.
Oh my God! I got to mute you because you got a little background noise. I'm gonna let y'all up shortly here. Give me a second, Young African. Give me a second, Ralph. And I got a GOAT James Kingdom member. I'm gonna bring him up next. Shout out to you, Anthony Herm. Why did you make this about LeBron James? In fact, Wilt Chamberlain's career is actually a mirror of Jordan's career, where he was dominant for the first 7 years and was a complete statistician. Everything was about the stats. It's all about scoring titles, all about getting steals. So much so that Jordan was willing to fake steals. Like, that was Wilt Chamberlain's career, just dominating the game, not worrying about it, saying that and my teammates didn't do this, my teammates didn't do that. That's the same thing as Michael Jordan. The only difference is that Wilt Chamberlain decided to stop shooting the ball when he was told to stop shooting as much, and Jordan didn't. And the Bulls were able to win. And like Wilt Chamberlain said, the only reason Jordan was able to do what he was able to do because they changed rules to help Jordan dominate while they were changing rules to stop Wilt Chamberlain from dominating the game of basketball. Like I told you, he had to switch teams.
He was in the Jim Crow era, though.
No, but he had to switch teams, right? Because like I told you, the Philadelphia Warriors drafted him in 1959. I mean, they drafted him well before that, but he joins them in 1959. In 1962, they go to San Francisco. You know any franchise that's switching cities is not a stable franchise. Then they trade him 2.5 years later back to Philadelphia to a new franchise, basically an expansion franchise. They become the 76ers, and he instantly takes them to the top. Like, he's just a phenomenal player, man. He's just incredible amongst all things. Let me let my GOAT James Kingdom member up. You got any last words, Herm? Go ahead and put your show up too. Plug your show, please, brother. Let them know about your show.
Man, y'all tune in to Full Court Press because I'm gonna cook Young Africa like I did last week before he got us striked. We were showing those videos because he was getting cooked so bad. And shout out to GOAT James Kingdom, man. Great content, man. He always comes with it, man. Hey, Johnny always comes with it. Interesting conversation. And the month, don't sit up there and try to kill Bill Russell. It's not all about the stats all the time, Lamont. It's about the intangibles. And in the instance of Wilt and Bill Russell, it was all about the intangibles, man. Wilt was sometimes too cocky for his own damn good. That's why he was getting his ass kicked a lot.
He had to be cocky. Shit, he was 6'11" at 12. And remember, he was the fastest to 20,000, and he's the only one who has 20,000 body counts. That's a fact right there. That's a fact right there for Wilt Chamberlain, man. That man was crazy, man. Shout out to you, Herm, though. Let me let some other folks in, man. I appreciate you, Herm. Man, appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you, man. You guys are all been great, man. This is great. Let me get you up here, Anthony. Thank you for joining me, Anthony. You are a GOAT James Kingdom member, brother. Thank you for joining me. What you got on today's topic? Because I know you're older than me, so I know you got some history. What you got for me, brother?
I got you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. Well, Bill Russell never stopped Wilt Chamberlain ever. He was averaging 28 points and 28 rebounds against Bill Russell. So let's be very clear. Bill Russell never stopped Wilt Chamberlain in his career. What's interesting is that I've always heard young guys tell me how Shaq would manhandle Wilt. I would always get into this debate. People don't understand that Wilt at times in his career was up to 300 plus pounds, man. He's 7'2", 300 pounds. But the thing is that he was a physical specimen, and this dude could really bench press about 600 pounds. Arnold Schwarzenegger talked about this guy during the filming of Conan about the weights he would lift that professional bodybuilders couldn't do. He was running about a 4.3 40. He was a phenomenal athlete with an incredible vertical leap, strength, speed. He was like LeBron James, but at over 7 feet in terms of athleticism. People have no idea. So when we talk about like his speed, his athleticism, his strength, there's no way Shaq would have been able to deal with him physically at all. There's no way that Shaq is manhandling him And I think there's some footage where at a Knick game where Wilt Chamberlain was there, Shaq was there, Ewing was there at center court with Chamberlain, and Chamberlain shakes Shaq's hand, and Shaq is jarred by the strength of Chamberlain. Like Chamberlain was just different, bro. And the testimonials of his contemporaries, his peers, they all talk about his strength, his speed, and in the clutch factor, there no peer of his, not one peer, not anybody watching him at the time would say he choked. Not one guy. In many instances, man, the point differential in a lot of these 7-game series was so small it could have went here or there. It's a bounce here, it's a bounce there, some lucky bounce, whatever. It had very little to do with him choking. It's just, and you know what? Quite frankly, let's give Bill Russell credit for the times that he won. Bill Russell won 2 championships in college, right? Back-to-back, Olympic gold medal. Came right into the NBA and won 11 of 13. He had like a 13 or 15-year period where Bill Russell was the greatest winner, period, in all of sports. Just give the man credit. It is what it is. But as you said earlier, what Chamberlain was able to do during that dominant era in terms of winning 2 championships and 2 of the greatest teams of all time, and the 33-game win streak plus the prodigious numbers, sets him apart. There's no way in the world this man is not top 5 or at arguably the GOAT. That's all I got to say, bro.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. That is Anthony Davis. Listen, y'all, he is older than me. I'm not gonna give you his age. He's given his age before. We're gonna leave it at that. He watched the 80s. So that lets you know that he knows basketball. So he knows more than all of y'all who's in the comments talking crap when it comes to Wilt Chamberlain. But let me let Ralph up because Ralph definitely wants to have this conversation again. I appreciate you, Anthony. We'll be in touch, brother. Make sure you reach out to me for anything you need as a member. All right, brother? All right, brother. Have a good one. Thank you. Let me let Ralph up here. Ralph, I know you want to cook because I know you're a Wilt Chamberlain guy. Am I correct?
You already know, big bro. Man, salute to you, man, for having a wonderful show. Once again, man.
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead. Cook. It's your. I want to hear what you guys say because you see what I brought up. I brought up everything that people need to know about Wilt Chamberlain. Let me know more. If I missed anything, bro, let them know.
No, you hit everything on those, but the guy who was before Herm, man, he clearly don't know what he's talking about. He knew a little bit about what the 8 points and all that, and the 4 points, but he didn't even know the correct series. He was just spitting out stuff to like stick. But anyway,
yeah, and now mind you, he's talking about the season where Wilt Chamberlain had that horrible coach that despised Wilt Chamberlain and took Wilt Chamberlain out of the game or refused to put Wilt Chamberlain back in the game 7 for them to win. But go ahead and cook it, Ralph. Go ahead and yeah, exactly. Go ahead and cook, brother.
Yeah, he got injured in game 7, man. Like that was a real physical series, and also like the combined times that Wilt lost to the Celtics, it was a total of 8 points. A total of 8 points all them times he lost to the Celtics, bro. So what are we talking about? He beat up on Wilt and all that. The thing was, well, Bill, why the Celtics were so phenomenal because their goal was, what Bill said, to let Wilt score and all that. So he outthinked Wilt and all that. His teammates were good, Hal Greer and all that, but he only had a couple of teammates. So it was Hal Greer, Wilt, and Bill Cunningham who was doing everything. Like, come on, bro.
No, yeah, he did have some teammates though. He did. It's not like say he didn't have a great team, but again, the schemes were different. The coaching didn't understand him. Like I keep saying, people don't understand how he was misunderstood. Having someone like a Wilt Chamberlain on your team is you want him to do more than what he does, and then it's easy to blame him. It's easy to say, "Oh, it's your fault." You see what I'm saying? Like that's how it was. Like you see what I'm saying? Like he was that misunderstood. But when he did have a good team and he started passing the ball and started playing team games, he won more. Like what they like to bring up his playoffs, right? We were talking about how he does in the playoffs, right? These are his playoff numbers, right, Ralph? But what they failed to realize is those 160 playoff games that we're seeing here in Wilt Chamberlain's career, majority of them were from 1967 and on. So it's like, so you see him at 22 and a half. That's because that's what he was doing at the end of his career. Because the beginning of his career, he wasn't doing that. He was averaging more points than that. Because like I told you, when we look at the two different Wilt Chamberlains, between 1960 and 1966, he was averaging 33 points per game. 26 rebounds.
The huge playoff drop. That's crazy. Like his highs are so high that his lows are some of the greatest players' highs.
No, but mind you, the same people that are telling us that these are choking numbers were the same people that were telling me, right, that this ain't choking numbers. Right? These were the same people. These were the same people doing the same shit. They were saying the same shit. Who was outplaying MJ? Who was the same people? That's why this is so important to talk about, because the Zesty Jeffries want to discredit Wilt Chamberlain when Michael Jordan and Wilt Chamberlain have similar paths.
Right, and Mike never went against an all-time great defender, bro.
Never had to go with somebody like Bill Russell. Never.
Right, or the Nate Thurmans and guys like that.
Willis Reed, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Right, he went against Magic and them when he was younger, but when it was in prime time, when he entered it and peak, they were holding out the lead. Diseases and back, Shawn Michaels' back broke. Like, what are we talking about, bro?
Again, what we talking about is how great Wilt Chamberlain is. And that's what they can't do. They can't never explain to you why somebody's great. They always got to tell you why somebody has a flaw.
Right.
Right? Free throws. That was it. Free throws. And being a freak of nature. That's it. That's the only flaw he had, was being 7'4".
And overthinking sometimes.
Nah, he was. Listen, he was nice. They said he was nice. What's it called? Bill Russell said the first time he played him, he scored 50 on him. He said there was another game where where Wilt Chamberlain scored 62 on him, and he was like, "Man, this guy's a problem." And they started going to dinners together. They started hanging out. He started befriending Wilt Chamberlain because he realized Wilt Chamberlain was nice. Man, they said Wilt Chamberlain used to like hold back in a game because he could just like dunk the ball. If you try to block it, he would break your hand. We know for a fact that he broke somebody. He dislocated somebody's shoulder because he was angry. So it's like we again, he was a freak of nature. But I have Young Africa in the back, and I know Young Africa. Let me let Young Afro up, and I'm gonna bring you back. All right, Ralph?
Wait, that Michael came from Wilt, so like you said. But thank you, brother. I
appreciate it. No problem, man. Thank you so much. Again, y'all hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, become a member of the channel. We got Young Africa, a FYF panelist. He also has his own show. Go ahead and plug in your show, brother, and come with it because I know you ready to bring it. Go ahead, brother. I'm listening. I'm listening.
Full court press, man. Look, we're going to be here tomorrow. But look, what I'm about to show you is what we get down and do anyways, man. Look, first off, disappointed, man. Go James Kingdom. A man that calls himself the exposer out here talking to dudes claiming that Michael Jordan didn't face Hall of Fame defense. A joke, man. A joke. This man is talking about Hakeem Olajuwon, one of the greatest defenders of all time, all up in Jordan's era. Hey, I don't even need to say that. Let me cook on what I was going to do. You agree with Ralph? No pushback. I'm disappointed in you, man. You know better. You should know better, man. So I'm disappointed in you. And
Hakeem ain't Bill Russell.
Hey, Hakeem better than Bill Russell, bro. Don't even talk to me about that. So let me say this, man.
Vernon Maxwell was sticking Jordan.
Yeah. Okay, but let me say this. Look, to the point that you talking about, right? Great stream. You know how to present an argument. You know how to line that shit up and everything. Hey, real smooth with it. No lie, real smooth with it. But when it comes to exposing, you expose yourself, my brother. This is what's amazing. Look, this is the man in Go James Kingdom that comes here every week, and everything he talks about is about how Jordan ain't the GOAT, right? And now Wilt Chamberlain is above Jordan. But let me say this, as a brother, and all that zesty Jeffrey talk that you be saying, that shit don't work with me, because I ain't got him as the GOAT. We know LeBron James is the GOAT. But let me say
I know you're not a zesty Jeffrey. That I know.
Which means your frontline defense, your go-to defensive stance can't work with me. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So let me tell you this, right? When it comes to Jordan, the consistent argument that you have had about this man's career has been, what competition did he go up against? And you have consistently stated that when it comes to the teams that he went up against, this nigga had the stacked squad against everybody since he gets Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, Dennis Rodman, Steve Kerr. We know the list, right? Cool coach. All them guys way better than everybody else. So Who the hell did Wilt Chamberlain go up against in the 40s and 50s and 60s? When you would talk about the segregation era of the NBA, when niggas weren't even allowed to play up in that shit, how do you gas up all them fadeaways against these white dudes that can't contest shit? And you talk about these short ass white boys. You get up at 50. Please explain how that is impressive, bro. Please.
That is completely impressive. And again, let's explain this. You're right. It was the 50s. Oh my God. I agree with you. 50s America was horrible, especially for a black man, especially for black folk. I agree with you, right? We know the league had a rule where you had a limited, 4 players that had to be black on your team till like 1962 or 63, I believe it was around that time. So before then, you only had like maybe 1 black guy on your team if you had a black guy on your team. I agree with you. That's not the point. The point is that Wilt Chamberlain wasn't what they called the goons back then. Back then, they used to call you a goon because you were just a big man on the floor. You was a Frankenstein. You didn't.
They called you a Negro, man. But go ahead. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, okay.
Right. It was something similar to that. I'm going off of some old history stuff. I've been doing my research, right? So when Wilt Chamberlain entered the league, he changed the idea of how skilled the players should be and can be. He changed everything. They had to change the rules. They had to change how the game was played to fit him. That's how great he was. So that, like, you can't use the competition because at the end of the day, he did have tough competition because the league within itself was making it competitive to keep Wilt Chamberlain from dominant. Then he had to face the greatest franchise that would ever existed as far as the dynasty goes. Boston Celtics at that time, and I believe the Knicks, Detroit Pistons, I believe were the key corner franchises of the NBA.
Okay,
right?
No, hold on. Let me just get to that first point that you said. So,
Okay, go ahead.
Because they had to limit Wilt Chamberlain and change the rules because he was so dominant, that proves that he had competition. Hey, I don't understand the logic, and that don't work with me.
No,
hey,
I said that I said the league created competition for him. Did he have competition as far as what? What do you mean by competition? Was there anybody like him?
No. Hey.
What do you mean? No, because you're putting words in my mouth because the competition is about teams. You're talking about players. You're saying because Jordan had no players that would comp to him, but he.
No. This is not what we're talking about. No.
Okay.
You know what we're talking about when we say competition. First off, there's the level of players that you go up against, and then there's the team as well as constructed. A team in the Boston Celtics, a great team, and when he went up against great teams, he could not get over the hump. I'm not holding it against Wilt Chamberlain that he didn't win championships against the Boston Celtics. What I'm saying to you is when we define his greatness, right, and we define his dominance, that is measured by how much he dominated the competition. And statistically, is what I'm talking about. And that's an individual trait. And now don't stop me. Let me cook. Because when it comes to Wilt Chamberlain's statistical greatness, there are questions. 48 minutes a game in the 60s and shit in the 70s cannot happen in the modern day, which is why we need to adjust the numbers. And so what do? We adjust the numbers to the per 36 minutes per game like he would have been doing in the modern era where you're not running up and down the court and getting 120 possessions, Ajani. You know that. Hey, if LeBron got 120 possessions per game, what the hell is LeBron's numbers look like? He's dropping 40-point triple doubles every season of his prime. So let me tell you something, Ajani. When you measure and per 36's numbers out for his whole career, Wilt Chamberlain averages 23 points per game. 23 points per game. His highest points would have been 37 points per game. He looking like James Harden, Kobe Bryant prime numbers. And that is at his peak. That's when we adjusted to what? To the modern era. So when you measure it and you understand that the only greatness and the only argument that he actually does have, Wilt Chamberlain, in terms of all-time Hall of Fame GOAT conversation is what? Is the numbers. The numbers is the biggest argument. And when it comes to the numbers and you adjust it to the modern era, you gotta stop talking about it like he dropped 50. It's actually 37 in 2021, bro. 37 points per game in the 2020s, man. So stop this, man.
No, listen. Yeah, if you want to remove a quarter of his stats, because you can't accept the fact that he was the only player doing that even in his era. No one else was averaging 46 minutes per game for their NBA career. So you can't say Wilt Chamberlain can't do this. That's what made Wilt Chamberlain great. Like he said, I can score 30 points per game at 60. You guys can't stop. Hold on. I let you cook. And you now go ahead and get your little, because I believe you from East Africa, correct?
Oh, most definitely.
Okay, so y'all eat with y'all hands and you scoop up your little thing. Go ahead and eat. Scoop up what you just cooked while I'm cooking for you to get some more meals. Because I'm about to cook you on this whole topic about Wilt Chamberlain's numbers need to be adjusted to the modern era. No. The modern era needs to adjust to what Wilt Chamberlain did. Can you play 48 minutes? We got guys complaining about guys. Load management. This is a soft era. They don't even want to play the games. Well, this man said, I'm not getting out of a game. And I'm going to be doing it again tomorrow night, the night after that. And whatever games y'all got me scheduled to do, I'll be at every game. And I will score 50 points per game doing it. Like, that's dominance. Like, you are not going to adjust no numbers. We're going to have to look at that and say, that's why he's Wilt Chamberlain. That's why he stands aside from everybody else. If you want to put him separate because how different things was, I agree with you. It could be a different thing. Him and Bill Russell are actually separated from the panels of everybody else because the way the game was played, how the game was just fresh and it just started. It was the beginning of what we know as the NBA. But at the end of the day, we're not going to cut his minutes to 36 minutes per game. Kobe can't play 45 minutes per game. LeBron can't play 45 minutes per game. Michael Jordan can't play 45 minutes per game. Wilt Chamberlain can, and I think he could have did it in the 90s as well under that slow pace. You're asking him to play, he was playing 120 possessions running up and down. Now you're asking him to play at 90? He's going to dominate, like he says. I don't need no rest. I'm going to run up and down and dominate the game because I can do everything on the basketball court. No one can stop me. There's not going to be an individual on this basketball court that can stop me. I can shoot from the perimeter. I can do it. That's not capping. That's facts.
No, you know what's cap about that? No, he did do that. You know what's cap? That he's the only one. Let me tell you some facts about that era. Elgin Baylor averaged 40 minutes per game for his career. He peaks at 45 minutes per game in 1960 to 1961. So when we talk about what you could do in that era, there was multiple players. And if I looked at it any further, I would find multiple players that average over 40 minutes per game, which shows that it's not that Wilt Chamberlain is such a supreme athlete. You know what your stamina is based on? The competition. If I'm running up and down the court and these niggas can't catch me and they ain't athletic like me, yeah, I would do that all day, dog. Yeah, if I play some 10-year-olds on the court, I'm averaging 50 points per game and I'm playing the whole game because they ain't doing nothing, bro. So let me tell you something. Hey, hold on. And you haven't addressed my point. Yeah, so all that.
I did. Y'all always say address your point. Let me ask you this: When was the last time in the NBA where half of the shooting guards were in Kobe's era or Michael Jordan's era were Hall of Famers, like Wilt Chamberlain was, where half of the centers or more were Hall of Famers?
Hall of Famers.
Yes.
Hey, first off, when you start when you're starting a league, there's going to be certain players that are Hall of Famers. Now, if you looked at the Hall of Famers all across the board from all eras, you would definitely know that Wilt Chamberlain's era would have the weakest Hall of Famers of all time, nigga. So don't even
He got Bill Russell. He got Nate Thurman. He got Willis Reed. None of those guys are weak.
You got George Mikan, my nigga, who wasn't doing shit out there.
No, George Mikan wasn't even in the league then. You're talking about a guy that played in the 50s. George Mikan played in the NBA when they didn't even have an MVP. So we can't even talk about George Mikan. We're talking about the 60s. We're talking about the 60s. There's Embry. There's a bunch of guys who were straight up Hall of Famers, legends in the game of basketball, real guys who can play the game. Have you seen what Nate Thurman could do? Have you seen what Willis Reed can do? Like, what are you talking about?
Solid players, but when we talk about the competition and how we measure it to now, it's not even a comparison. Hey, first off, let's just on this point. You have often cooked errors about competition. So how just magically the 90s weak, the 80s weak, but then
because the 90s had weak teams.
No, hold on. Let me ask the question, bro. Don't finesse it. Let me just ask the question. How is the 80s weak? How were the 90s weak? But when we go back to the 70s and 60s, somehow it became a dominant, strong, competitive era. How, bro? How do you explain that?
I'm going to explain that very easily, very simple and plain. Like I told you and like I told everybody else, the 60s had the toughest era because it was a compact league. You're talking... Hold on. It's a compact league. I'm gonna let you go for a second, Africa, so I can bring up some other folks behind you. I appreciate you, Africa. Y'all know to follow Young Africa.
I know you running from this, man. You got to, man. I know.
No, I got you. It ain't running. I'm gonna expose you right here. I'm gonna expose you right.
I ain't even done yet. You let
I'm gonna expose you here again. The 90s was weak because of the teams. The fact that there was a bunch of teams spread out and a bunch of players spread out is why the 90s was weak. That didn't exist in the 60s. The 60s had 3-4 Hall of Famers on each team because the league was compact. If I took the 30-team league of today's NBA and compacted to 15 teams, how good is the league? That's the 60s. That is the 60s. And that's what Wilt Chamberlain talked about when he was saying how the 90s was weak and why the competition of the 90s was weak. This is Wilt Chamberlain explaining it.
But I don't see that basketball is necessarily crumbling when you talk about some of the problems. But before we take the break, in your book, Who's Running the Asylum, you talk about a number of issues. Are there any solutions that you can rattle off?
Oh, yeah, but you say, when I say crumbling, you mean to think it's just parity? There's 8 or 9 teams out there last year who played 300 ball or less. I've never seen that when I was playing. If that's not crumbling, I don't know what is crumbling. You understand? So yeah, there is a way to have a solution. When you have new teams coming to the league, give them a chance to have better people on their team. They have a grab bag situation, which they throw in the 3 or 4 worst guys from each team into a grab bag, and one guy is picked to be on each of the teams, the new teams. Well, how about only being able to hold 5 guys back on each team and give something good in that grab bag, so the new teams can start off with some good players. And that's one way to solve some of the problems of non-parity.
So that's what I'm talking about, competition. That's what we mean when we talk about competition. It's about the teams, not the players. You guys keep going back to players. That's what Mac did a couple weeks ago when he was trying to bring up how Shaq was better than most of the guys in the 2010s. So obviously Jordan had comp. We're not talking about players. We're talking about teams. We're talking about a team that won 8 straight NBA championships. They had to go through a few game 7s to do it. It wasn't like they were just running through teams. And matter of fact, the Boston Celtics didn't even have the best record of the 60s. It was Wilt Chamberlain's 67 Sixers. It goes to show you how there were so many great teams of that era because there were so many good players on one team. Every team had 4 or 5 good players. Not like in the 90s where every team only had 1 good player and a bunch of role players. That's why back then you had a bunch of guys who could put up 30 points per game. You didn't have that in the 90s. Since y'all want to bring up competition, you had a bunch of teams that could win 60 games in the 60s. You didn't have that in the 90s. I'm sorry, 65 games. Right? So that's what we're talking about competition-wise. There was no competition in the 90s because the league was expanding. And like he said, when the new teams were being involved, they were giving them crumbs. You had teams like the Vancouver Grizzlies who couldn't win 20 games for 3 years straight in the 90s, to end the 90s. The Raptors, all these teams, and what ended up happening in the NBA, it got so bad in the 90s that when the expansion team came in the 1996 season, they couldn't have a first-round pick for the first 3-4 years in the NBA. Because when they let the other teams like Miami, the Timberwolves, the Hornets, and what's the other team I'm missing here? Those 4 teams that came in the late 80s and early 90s, those teams were getting the high draft picks. They were getting Shaquille O'Neal, Alonzo Mourning, Larry Johnson. And other teams were crumbling because now all the expansion teams are grabbing up all the great players out of college. Where are we going to get good players from? How are we going to get good players? Where are they coming from? Oh, you know what? Let's let them come from high school. Then you get Kevin Garnett. Let's let the underclassmen come in. Let's go get some French players. Let's go get some European players. That's what the 90s was about. You didn't have to do that in the 60s. You didn't have to do that in the 70s. They were real teams. Matter of fact, the 70s is probably one of the most toughest eras when we want to talk about parity. No team won back-to-back championships in the 70s. I think like 7 teams won a championship in the 70s. Like, again, y'all want to talk the game of basketball, but all y'all want to do is nitpick. I'm going to let you back up. Young Africa. I'm going to let you back up. Let me let Brandon up because Brandon got something to say. Shout out to Wall Street, Brandon. Welcome to another Friday Night Exposure with the Exposer. We're talking Wilt Chamberlain's career. What do you have for us today, sir?
Yeah, I've never heard so much lying. Like, you and Lamont both like to lie about this. So first of all, this idea that Jordan didn't play great defenders, Michael Jordan played Sidney Moncrief, one of the best perimeter defenders in NBA history, cooked Moncrief. He averaged over 30 a game. Michael Jordan played Michael Cooper. He averaged over 30 a game against Michael Cooper. So, but the problem with Wilt, and this is why Wilt has no GOAT case, you cannot be the GOAT if your game has a significant deficiency, and Wilt could not shoot at all. Wilt was shooting 38 and 40% from the foul line for multiple years in the regular season. So Wilt's true shooting percentage for his career is literally below 55%. Michael Jordan averaged more points per game against stronger competition, and Michael Jordan had a better true shooting percentage than Wilt every single year in the NBA against better competition. Finally, to your point, you and Lamont keep making this point. It's horrible too. The expansion teams impacted the Bulls with Jordan the same way they impacted every other team in the NBA. There were more contenders and more 60-win teams in the 90s than the 60s, but the Bulls were only a 2-star team with Jordan. It was Jordan and Pippen. So the best teams in the 80s, most of them had 3 Hall of Famers. The Lakers had Kareem, Worthy, and Magic. Boston had Mikal, Parrish, and Bird. Philadelphia had Dr. J, they had Dawkins, they had Maurice Cheeks, and they had Moses Malone. The Bulls were a 2-star team. So the Bulls were impacted by the expansion teams exactly the same as everybody else. The Bulls didn't have a super team like the great teams in the 80s. So Jordan cooked elite defenders like Cooper and Moncrief. Jordan was even better as a scorer in the 80s and the 90s, even against elite defensive teams and against teams before the expansion era. It's just, this is casual bullshit.
As usual and as typical, ladies and gentlemen, Brandon is such a great liar. He said Wilt Chamberlain can't shoot, and then he used free throws to explain that. Ladies and gentlemen, let's show them how Wilt Chamberlain showed Michael Jordan how to shoot the ball.
Wilt Chamberlain. Oh, how about that?
Wilt still tries it. And in she goes. Chamberlain turns and shoots outside. Good.
There's somebody going through the middle. Nobody goes. Wilt takes it in himself. Puts it in there.
Wilt did not go in and bump and dislodge people. That was not his game. And if you remember, the main point is 60% or more of Wilt's shots came on fadeaways.
Chamberlain is the greatest scoring machine the game has ever known, and he can score on you in dozens of ways. Here's one you can't stop, the fall-away jumper. And he hits this repeatedly, despite good defense. That fall-away jumper just cannot be stopped. Beautiful.
When this giant walks out on the floor, the 76ers automatically have a great number of points.
Unbelievable shot, Keith. If he gets that close to the basket, I don't see how anyone can stop him.
I think with his...
Again, ladies and gentlemen, he brought up true shooting to explain why Michael Jordan was a better scorer than Wilt Chamberlain, although he wouldn't use the same numbers if we were talking
Jordan
LeBron
played
James.
competition too.
If we were talking LeBron James and Michael Jordan, he wouldn't want to use those same numbers. Here's Wilt Chamberlain just fucking around, shooting the ball, making hook shot 3-pointers from the corner.
I'm gonna tell you something. As bad as it looked, you didn't miss by that much. You see me make 2 in a row. No, I had to sample it fast. There you go. I'm good for 5 hours. I just made the last 3 of them. I don't care. This is the one I'm talking about for 5 hours. Get up! Get up!
Again, he wants to talk about competition. The 90s was not competition. He said everybody in the 80s had 3 stars and mentioned 3 teams. That's not everybody in the 80s. There was over 20 teams in the NBA in the 1980s. 3 teams don't make the whole NBA full of 3 stars. Same thing with the 90s. There was no team full of 3 stars in the 90s. It was only the Chicago Bulls with 2 stars. Most teams didn't even have 1 star, let alone 2 stars like the Chicago Bulls.
That's not true. There were more contenders in the 90s.
The Bulls did not have the competition. I'll let you speak. That Wilt Chamberlain had to go through. He had to deal with the Bill Russell Celtics. He had to deal with the St. Louis Hawks. He had to deal with the Knicks. He had to deal with the Milwaukee Bucks. He had to deal with teams that were great teams that had great players.
He didn't beat them.
It doesn't matter. Jordan lost to those same teams you were talking about. The Milwaukee and all those teams. Jordan lost to all those teams. Jordan lost to all those teams. Jordan and Wilt did beat those teams. Wilt beat Boston. He was the only one to beat Boston. He was the only one. He was the only one to beat Boston. He was the only one to beat Boston. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Against Boston, he averaged over 26 points per game, 27 rebounds per game, shooting 51% from the field. What are you talking about? He was dominant throughout his whole career, and he played against tougher competition.
He was not dominant.
Yes, he was.
So Wilt's was garbage. He was not dominant. You're not giving true shooting percentage or efficiency because those numbers cook your casual take. Jordan was always more efficient.
No, 54% is what he shot for his career. In an era where people were shooting in the low 40s. That's not garbage in the era when everybody else is shooting 40% or low. When everybody else is shooting below. No center was shooting 50%. Bill Russell was shooting less than 45. And no, they had good centers. You're lying. That's like Jordan. Jordan didn't have no good shooting guards.
Okay, were the centers better in the 90s or the 60s?
The 60s had more Hall of Famers, and when you come by percentage-wise.
Yes. The question I asked, not the one I didn't. Were the centers better in the 90s or the 60s? Because in the 90s, you had
the 60s.
you had
the 60s.
You had
Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain.
David Robinson.
Wilt Chamberlain.
Centers better in the 90s.
Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain.
Answer the question.
The 25-year-old Wilt Chamberlain transplanted into today's NBA. What do you do?
Well,
you can take Russell with you.
It's simple for me. It may be a little different for Russ, but simple for me. I think it'd be as easy for Russ. You see, with the new rules, which are all slant to help the offense. Now, when I get the ball, instead of having 2 and 3 people and Russ all at me at the same time, I'm by myself with one guy. I would love it. I would love it. 50 points, maybe 60 points, maybe 70 points a game. Because I had nobody. Wait a minute. Well, you asked me a question, right?
70 a game.
Well, you know, the last 10 games, I was talking to Russ about the last 10 games of my 61-62 season, right before I scored 100 points, I averaged about 71 points a game.
Yeah, you were on a rampage.
Yeah, but I'm saying to you, but it's easier now. I was too fast. I was too strong. One guy is not going to take me down in that particular way. The best basketball athletes I've ever seen played in the 50s and 60s.
So again, if we're going to sit here and have a conversation about the game of basketball, we have to be honest with ourselves. Brandon wants to bring up the fact that Wilt Chamberlain didn't play in the 90s, and he wants to name 5 centers out of a 25-team league. That means 20% of the centers were great. Wilt Chamberlain had to go against more greater centers on a night-to-night basis than any of the 90s centers. So it was tougher competition for the 60s than it was for the 90s centers. What do you got to say about that? That's what it is.
Okay, right, but here's the point you're missing, is that the talent pool for basketball in the 80s and 90s was far bigger than the 60s because there were so many more players, particularly black players, who played college basketball in the 70s, 80s, and 90s than there were in the 50s or 60s. So the talent pool was far bigger, even though there were more teams as well. And so when you look at Wilt's numbers, points per game and efficiency, the 90s centers shit on the 60s centers. David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon, Shaquille O'Neal came into the league in 92-93. He was in his prime just as long in the 90s as he was in the 2000s. And yet the top centers in the 90s are all more efficient than Wilt against better talent with more restrictive rules. Jordan averages more per game.
Who's more efficient than Wilt? Who is more efficient than Wilt? Who is more efficient than Wilt in the 90s? Is Hakeem more efficient than Wilt Chamberlain in the 90s?
Oh, easily.
Easily? What is Hakeem Olajuwon's field goal percentage for his career, sir?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but it's much.
So how do you know that it's easily Hakeem Olajuwon if you don't even know the numbers?
Hakeem Olajuwon was an excellent free throw shooter. Wilt couldn't shoot free throws at all.
I said field goal percentage. Again, I'm going to ask you a very simple question. What is Hakeem Olajuwon's? Why you don't care about? Okay, all right. So let's go to this. Let's go to this then. True percentage also includes 3-pointers, but you want to add the 90s guys. Let's do this. So if the 90s talent pool was wait. If the 90s pool was so talented and so much greater than the 60s, are you willing to accept that the 2010s talent is greater than the 90s?
No, the 2010s was complete trash.
See, you heard that, ladies and gentlemen. You heard that. You heard what that man just said. You heard what that man just said. You heard what he just said. Just to give you reference, ladies and gentlemen, Wilt Chamberlain shot 54% for his NBA career. Hakeem Olajuwon shoots 51% for his career. He is not more efficient than Wilt Chamberlain. He wants to bring up true shooting because that's his only argument when he doesn't use true shooting in any other argument when we're talking about players. I've had this man up countless times to talk to me. He has never mentioned how true shooting is an important number for him. Never mentioned that. Now he wants to use true shooting to tell us why Wilt Chamberlain is not more efficient than Hakeem Olajuwon and anybody in the 90s. And mind you, he won't accept it if we tell him LeBron James has a better true shooting than Jordan. He won't accept that. That he won't accept. This is why this is very necessary for me to do the things that I do. This is why you have to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's let him continue to lie, because I like his lies. Go ahead, continue to lie, Brandon. Go ahead.
I'm going to completely cook. So first of all, Hakeem Olajuwon has a better true shooting percentage than Wilt. And to your point, when you say, well, you can't compare because of the three-point shot, the centers in the 90s were not shooting threes. David Robinson didn't shoot threes. Ewing didn't shoot threes. Hakeem didn't shoot threes. And so Hakeem Olajuwon played far better competition in the 80s and 90s. He played Kareem. He played David Robinson. He played Ewing. And by the way, he dominated them all too. So Hakeem is more efficient. And I always use true shooting percentage. I'm a very consistent person.
Who's more efficient, LeBron or Jordan? Who's more efficient, LeBron or Jordan?
Jordan, when you adjust for defenses and era. You have to adjust efficiency for era. You cannot look at efficiency without looking at it relative to the era. And quickly, you in Young Africa cooked yourself. Hey,
say another motherfucking word and this shit is over. And I ain't playing, nigga. Sit your ass down.
Bruh, these motherfuckers are just, listen to that. I'm not gonna sit here and let you talk about this and just lie. I asked you a simple question. You don't even want to adjust the errors. Adjust the errors for Wilt Chamberlain then. Adjust Wilt Chamberlain's error. Compare his true shooting to that era. You can't talk the game of basketball. You guys are the worst of the worst, bruh. And this is why you are infamous in the dugout, bruh. For real, you are the most, I don't even know what to say about you, Brandon.
Sit your punk ass down. That old bullshit.
Like, legitimately, you just come up with anything just to have an argument, bro. What the fuck is that? Why would you just come up with an argument, bro, just to have an argument?
What the fuck you doing here? If you can't take it, sit your ass down.
I need y'all to do me a favor. I need a picture of Brandon so that I can put Brandon permanently right here with Michael Jordan in the dugout. He deserves to stay in a permanent position in the dugout. The man literally just said true shooting matters. Why Wilt Chamberlain is not better than Hakeem Olajuwon? He wants to stick to true shooting. He wants to say he's cooking me because of true shooting. That is his argument. He wants to go to true shooting. I asked him a simple question. Who's the better player, true shooting wise, LeBron James or Michael Jordan? He couldn't answer the question. He brought up some other nonsense. This is why you get put in the fucking dugout with all the rest of you zesty Jeffries.
Sit your punk ass down. That old bullshit.
I can't take it. I really can't. I'm going to put the link up again because I want to have a conversation with somebody who can have an actual basketball conversation. This man just wants to hate on Wilt Chamberlain. There's nothing to hate on. The man is great. The man said true shooting. He never uses true shooting ever. And he wants to use true shooting. Let me let Ralph back up because Ralph's been patient. Ralph, can you please cook these people, man? Because they don't know nothing about no Wilt Chamberlain. I'm dropping nothing but facts. And all he doing is sitting here lying here. That's all they do is lie.
Hey, man, if it, like you say, the zesty Jeffries, man, when they don't go in their favor, man, they just make up stuff, man.
Don't make no sense.
Then Young Africa always want to adjust numbers. Like, no, like you said, they got to catch up to Wilt and what LeBron and them guys in that tier do. Like,
exactly. The numbers are the numbers. You can't sit here and say, well, he played 36 minutes. He wouldn't. How do you know that? We don't know this. We don't know what Wilt Chamberlain would have did. For you to sit there and say he has to play 36 minutes because the rest of the guys were playing 36 minutes, no. Like, he played the game the way the game was supposed to be played. The game was true back then. Wilt Chamberlain's true shooting percentage for his career is 55. Basically 54.8. That's not that bad. Like, he made it seem like it was the worst in NBA history. And that's with being a horrible free throw shooter. So it shows you how great of a scorer he was. 55 is actually a good true shooting. Hakeem Olajuwon's only 55.3. So he's basically a half a point better than Wilt Chamberlain. You know how much better LeBron James is compared to Jordan when it comes to true shooting?
Right. Imagine if he made the free throws. His numbers would look more look more like mythical. Like, what are we talking
that's crazy.
about?
That is crazy. Oh, you know what? I got somebody I want to bring up that came back. Let me bring it back.
Just bring me back up when you bring everybody else.
I appreciate you. Let me bring up Paul here. Shout out, Paul. Thank you, Paul, for joining me. James Kingdom supporter. We're talking Wilt Chamberlain, and these guys are lying because they can't accept how great Wilt Chamberlain is. What do you have on Wilt Chamberlain? What do you know about Wilt Chamberlain there, Paul?
Well, Wilt Chamberlain have the most records of all time, and I know that if they counted blocks or steals, he will have way more records than they count him. You know what I mean? I mean, he will have 20 blocks in a game, like 10 blocks average in a season, 10 blocks average in a playoff series, career blocks average, career blocks totals.
Most triple doubles. He would have the most triple doubles.
Quadruple doubles.
All of that.
Can he have a quintuple double? Quintuple double. He have, I believe, 53 points, 32 rebounds, 14 assists, 24 blocks, and like 11 steals in a game. I believe that was a quintuple double he have. That was the the best.
It's the greatest. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing as far as stat wise, we all know why Wilt Chamberlain is up there. But even with his accomplishments, like I said, the fact that he has all these accolades, the fact that he has all these achievements that go along with it, it's not like he's just out here just doing nothing and then they try to discredit him by talking about his era's weak. Well, then isn't that the same thing we say about Jordan? And these are the same people that want to prop up Jordan. See, the difference is that I don't, what's it called? I don't knock Jordan back or nothing like that. I don't prop up nobody. Like, that's what they do. At the end of the day, everybody that I call great is in my top 5. LeBron, Wilt, Jordan, Russell, Kareem. Those are the greatest players to ever play the game of basketball. But for some reason, anybody who has Michael Jordan as number 1 don't have Wilt Chamberlain nowhere near their top 5. And they have Kobe Bryant up there. Like, how the hell Kobe Bryant better than Wilt Chamberlain? In what world? In what universe?
That makes no sense because Kobe Bryant doesn't have better stats, doesn't have better achievements, accolades. No, he doesn't have better anything than Wilt Chamberlain. He only shoots better free throws or mid range.
And only free throws. We can't even say mid range because from the stories, 60% of Wilt Chamberlain's shots came from mid range, and he shot 54% for his career. So we can easily say he was shooting well from the mid range. So they even that they don't have. Again, he averages 30.1 points per game. They don't want to accept that. That's Wilt Chamberlain's average. It's tied with Michael Jordan. 30.1 is equal to 30.1. You round up. You round up to the nearest 10th place. That's how the NBA has it. It does not go by the 100th place. It doesn't exist. 30.07 points per game does not exist. But 30.1 points do.
The problem I have with the Sesty Jeffries is, when I see at least about the best defenders of all time, I don't know why Wilt Chamberlain doesn't appear in the best defenders of all time. I think he's very underrated when it comes to defense, because if he have the most blocks, the most rebounds, he easily is one of the best defenders of all time. He's easily in the conversation with Bill Russell, of the best defender ever. Okay.
I have him too. I have him right behind Bill Russell, to be honest with you. I have him as the second greatest defender of all time.
I also have him behind Bill Russell. I think he's top 2, the best defender ever. In offense, he's also right there. In offense, So Wilt Chamberlain have everything on his career. And what was this guy that was here before, talking about Michael Jordan? What was that guy?
Oh, they had to bring up Michael Jordan. Remember, I didn't even bring up Michael Jordan. They had to bring up Michael Jordan. He's basically saying Wilt Chamberlain has no GOAT case because this, that, and the third. Just a bunch of lies that he brought up true shooting, his true shooting percentage. That he wasn't an efficient scorer. Meanwhile, the man averaged 54% for his career in an era where everybody would shoot like 40 or less than 40%.
But he said that Michael Jordan has a very true shooting percentage. So he was saying like, Michael Jordan is more efficient than Wilt Chamberlain. But then when you bring up LeBron James, that he has a very true shooting percentage, he just said that Michael Jordan still was more efficient. So that's a contradiction.
Yeah, that's all they are. They're walking contradictions. You're right about that. That is the fact. They're crazy. Now, but you know what? Yeah. Since we brought up Michael Jordan, they want to talk about Michael Jordan. Let's hear what Wilt Chamberlain had to say about Michael Jordan. Since they would ask him so many questions about the 90s.
Let's talk about, Michael Jordan. I'm curious. Michael Jordan... Say we had a time machine here, and we could send Michael Jordan back to the Civil War. No, that's stupid. What if, that's just my own fantasy,
yeah, right,
you know.
Right, okay.
What if we could send Michael Jordan back to playing basketball with you in your prime? All right. How do you think he would do in those days?
Well, first of all, I'm glad you said with me, you know, and not against me. Michael Jordan is one of those rare specimens that could have played at any particular time, and is a gifted athlete who is using those gifts in basketball incredibly so. He has been the liaison between something that's not so good and making it great for all the rest. I think that almost every man in the NBA should give him 10% of their checks.
So, you hear that? That's Wilt Chamberlain giving Michael Jordan his praise. But as usual, we got zesty Jeffries like Brandon Katz saying Wilt hates Jordan because he's jealous of him. Wilt's not jealous of nobody, man. Wilt Chamberlain is Wilt Chamberlain, man. I don't understand these dudes, bro. They are, and again, as great as Wilt Chamberlain is and as great as his career is similar to Michael Jordan, I don't see why they hate on Wilt Chamberlain other than the fact is that, yeah, Wilt Chamberlain was the true GOAT of basketball until LeBron James came.
And also Wilt Chamberlain, I want to say something, you know, they like you said before, they have to adjust to Wilt Chamberlain's era because of the 48.5 minutes a game he played in a season. He played like 45.8 minutes in his career per game average. He played literally almost every minute in a game. So his stamina and endurance is unmatchable. It's not comparable at all.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's not. Again, that's why I called him that. Yeah, he's a physical specimen.
His physical abilities, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are not comparable. Oh, his strength, his speed, you know, his weight. He's very fast. Okay, he's very fast. I believe he did like 4.7 seconds. I believe 4.7 seconds in 100-yard dash. He beat Jim Brown. No, Jim Brown, the football player. He beat him in running, I believe. And then Jim Brown dared him in a rematch, and Wilt Chamberlain beat him again.
Yeah. No, Wilt Chamberlain was a freak of nature, man. He was, and like I tell people, he was as big as he was still a normal person. He could do everything just like the normal human being, but just great at it. He was fast. He could jump. He could run. He was strong. He had good hand-eye coordination. He can have a soft touch to where he can finger roll. Like, he just did everything great. And check out Brandon here. By GOAT James GOAT James has no explanation why Shaq isn't ahead of Wilt and top 5 all time using his own criteria. I can explain that easily. Paul, you got any last words so I can keep exposing Brandon Katz here?
Well, I mean, Wilt Chamberlain is way more dominant than Shaquille O'Neal. He's way more dominant than him.
Facts.
Okay? Shaq, in a one-on-one game, Shaq have no probability of beating Wilt Chamberlain in a one-on-one game. Wilt Chamberlain will have destroyed Shaquille O'Neal in a one-on-one game. He has a 48-inch vertical. Wilt Chamberlain's hand in a video is on the top of the backboard. You know, he jumped and blocked the shot, and he's on the top of the backboard. So I mean, and he also in a one-on-one game with Magic Johnson, I believe, he blocked every single shot. Every single shot, he blocked him.
Yeah, he was defense alone makes him greater than Shaq. Shaq was nowhere near the defender Wilt Chamberlain was. Let's play some Wilt Chamberlain footage here. Yeah, let's play some Wilt Chamberlain footage. Either offense. Thanks so much, Paul. Again, let's play some Wilt Chamberlain defensive footage so they can know how great defensively Wilt Chamberlain was.
Great shot by Chamberlain. Jones, 3-on-2. Russell, blocked by Chamberlain. A great block by Chamberlain. 2 great plays by Wilt Chamberlain.
Now let's watch his defense.
He's going to challenge Wilt. He does. Wilt fly swats it right down his throat.
Jumps it up over Wilt. Wilt blocks it. That's 4 block shots for Chamberlain. Chamberlain blocked it. Great play by Chamberlain. Chamberlain gets the ball. Nice play.
Trying to get it up over Chamberlain. He drives it down his throat.
The Heights, and he's deep. Blocked by Chamberlain.
He switches to Krebs, blocks the shot.
Sam Jones. Good block by Chamberlain.
It's a 3-inch height advantage. Chamberlain got just enough of it.
Havlicek Blocked, and Chamberlain has the rebound.
Going to drive over Chamberlain. Wilt slaps it out of there. Good block by Chamberlain. Penetrates, gives to Jackson. Chamberlain blocks it. Put it up again. Chamberlain slaps it out. That's 7 times Wilt's blocked shots tonight.
And then on Wilt, puts it up. Wilt knocks it down.
Man, Wilt Chamberlain is way better than Shaquille O'Neal. Okay, it's not even close. It's not even close. Because again, when we did our GOAT James Kingdom, we have the greatest criteria that exists in any basketball circles. There's no one who has a criteria like us. We include everything, including your true shooting percentage, Brandon. All right? Shaq ended up being in the top 10, but he did not land the numbers Wilt Chamberlain landed. Wilt Chamberlain is, again, easily a top 5 great player of all time. Even when I did my own, which was recently, my top 50 list, you see where Shaquille O'Neal ended up, and you see where Wilt Chamberlain ended up. This is just going off of the players' stats, accolades. This is just going off of what they did for their career. Shaq was never as dominant as Wilt Chamberlain was. Shaq never led the league in rebounding. Shaq never led the league in block shots. Shaq only led the league in scoring twice. Shaq never averaged 30 points per game in an NBA season. What are you talking about? Shaq was playing against centers like Sean Bradley, George Mirison, Ostertag, Irvin Johnson. There was a lot of bum centers in the NBA in the 90s, bro. They like to mention the same ones. David Robinson, Akeem, Zoe, Shaq. But they don't mention that there was 20 other bum-ass centers throughout the 90s. And Shaq didn't dominate none of those guys. He barely dominated against David Robinson and them because we have footage of that as well. He couldn't even beat against David Robinson. So how was he that dominant? Wilt Chamberlain was way more dominant than Shaquille O'Neal, by far. And if you're an objective fan like we are here in GOAT James Kingdom, you can easily see that. Shaq don't have these numbers. Shaq don't have these kind of achievements and accolades to his resume. He doesn't have it. You think Shaq is the most dominant player in NBA history. He's not. The most dominant player in NBA history is easily and will always be Wilt Norman Chamberlain. No one will ever be as dominant as him. That's why he's Thanos to me. You want to talk about what he do against Shaquille O'Neal? Well, let's let him tell you what he'll do against Shaquille O'Neal.
If you were playing today, how would you fare against today's centers?
That would be dishonest.
I would think that
that'd be a license to steal.
See, I'm happy that I have a big mouth because I can say it on my own, Bill. It wouldn't be a license to steal. You're right. I would love it. Oh, are you kidding me? I mean, it would be a joke.
But wait a minute. What about against the Elijah ones?
He's quicker than I am, but I believe I'm faster than he is, or was at one time. I'm still pretty fast. No, but I just don't know of any center of the day that really. The best players I played against, starting right here, were all back in yesteryear. I mean, you want to talk about Nate Thurman, Willis Reed, you understand?
That man Wilt Chamberlain wasn't worrying about no Shaquille O'Neal, nor was Bill Russell.
Well, I really am interested. How would you play Shaquille O'Neal, a player like Shaquille O'Neal?
Yeah, I'm interested in that myself.
Well, first of all, if you want me to be serious for a minute.
Yes.
I would make him play horizontal as much as possible. Plus, I would make him have to run up and down the court all day. I figure if I weigh 240 and he weighs 340, and if he has to carry that whatever it is, up and down every time at a rapid rate, that the fatigue factor becomes part of it.
You know, you take guys out of your comfort zone. I wonder how Bill would play someone as big and strong and as fast as Shaquille. And he's right. You know, first of all, you just find the things that he does the worst, and those are the things you try to make him do the most.
So he just answered the question for you.
Yeah, I did it in a much shorter, more succinct manner.
Yeah, he's far more articulate.
Yeah, man. The man will dominate the game in any era because he knows how to play the game of basketball. Brandon, you don't know how to talk the game. You just sat here and gave me Shaquille O'Neal's field goal percentage. Why didn't you use his true shooting percentage versus Wilt Chamberlain? Why did you use his true shooting percentage? Why did you go to his field goal percentage efficiency? Why did you do that? Why did you change it up? Is there a reason why you didn't want to use Shaq's true shooting percentage? Why did you want to use Shaq's true shooting percentage? But that's what you guys do. You don't want to talk the game of basketball. You just want to find reasons to just think why somebody's better than the next guy, and you don't use that consistently across the board. Let's let Wilt Chamberlain continue to tell y'all why he would dominate that era.
The 25-year-old Wilt Chamberlain transplanted into today's NBA. What do you do?
Well,
you can take Russell with you.
It's simple for me. It may be a little different for Russ, but simple for me. I think it'd be as easy for Russ. You see, with the new rules, which are all slant to help the offense. Now, when I get the ball, instead of having 2 and 3 people and Russ all at me at the same time, I'm by myself with one guy. I would love it. I would love it. 50 points, maybe 60 points, maybe 70 points a game. Because I had nobody. Wait a minute. Well, you asked me a question, right?
70 a game.
Well, you know, the last 10 games, I was talking to Russ about the last 10 games of my 61-62 season, right before I scored 100 points, I averaged about 71 points a game.
Yeah, you were on a rampage.
Yeah, but I'm saying to you, but it's easier now. I was too fast. I was too strong. One guy is not going to take me down in that particular way. The best basketball athletes I've ever seen played in the 50s and 60s.
Yes, indeed. Wilt Chamberlain. One of the greatest players to ever play the game of basketball, hands down. You want me to name a season where Wilt Chamberlain had better than Shaq's playoff run? The 1967 season, where Wilt Chamberlain averaged 22 points per game, 29 rebounds, and 9 assists. Not to mention he was probably averaging 10 blocks per game and like 5 to 7 steals per game. That's the season I'm going to give to you. While he was shooting 58% from the field in the playoffs. That's what, and he beat the Celtics. That's what I'm going to give to you, Brandon. Again, you don't know the game, bro. You don't know. You just out here picking seasons like that makes Shaquille O'Neal better. Matter of fact, let's let Wilt Chamberlain give you some more ideas of how he used to play compared to how the 90s is and how completely different the eras were.
Now, what would his playing style, how would that have translated back then?
Well, his playing style is he's 6'7" and he's like 197 pounds. Coming into what we call our domain, the pivot for us big guys, would not have been very wise of Michael, you know, if he was playing during our time. So we would say, Michael, you know, as long as you do all those fancy things outside of where we are, that's fine. So it wouldn't have been good for Michael.
Really?
No.
You think he'd have been crushed, is what you're saying?
I don't think. I know he'd been crushed.
Really? He just wouldn't have worked back then?
No, he would have came in there once or twice.
What about the 360-degree whip-around dunk? Right. What would people have thought of that at the time?
Well, you know what? I'm glad you said that because, you see, the mentality of the fan today is wonderful, and they've learned to accept showbiz.
Right.
And Michael is the epitome of showbiz, along with that great talent. During my time, if you did a 360, first of all, the opposition would take it as an insult that you would try to do something like that against them. The coach on your own team, if you weren't at least 90,000 points ahead, would bench you. And the fans would look at you like, well, he's the biggest hot dog in the world.
So you're saying Michael Jordan back then would have been on the bench the whole time?
Absolutely, you know, being considered a hot dog. Think about that. And that's the truth.
Really?
But now in Chicago, if he doesn't give you one of those 360s you're talking about,
right,
even though their team is 90 points ahead,
right,
they're looking for something spectacular.
The fans will turn on
you. You're right.
Back then it was more about teamwork, working together.
Absolutely.
What's happened to basketball?
See? Again, the man's spitting nothing but facts. He's spitting nothing but facts. It was a different game back then. There was no such thing as backing down, dribbling like Charles Barkley was. You didn't do that. The ball had to move. You had to play team basketball. You had to know how to score quickly. You had to have the skill to play back then. Because the game was at its purest then. Like he said, Michael Jordan would have been on the bench. Because nobody was trying to see that. In fact, he's right about what he's talking about when he's talking about in Chicago that if Jordan's not doing one of those moves that people would think that it wasn't a good game. Because recently I was talking to Chilltown, shout out to Chilltown Sports, and he was telling me, or he wasn't telling me, but he was telling us during his show that when he went to go watch Michael Jordan play at a young age, that Michael Jordan had a good game, but Michael Jordan didn't have no spectacular dunk, or he didn't do nothing spectacular in the game. Although Jordan had close to 30 points, they were like, they left the arena like, man, that was horrible. They wanted to see Michael Jordan do all the phenomenal stuff that Michael Jordan used to do, but you couldn't do that back in those days. They didn't allow you to dribble between your legs, throw the ball behind your back. When Cousy was doing the things that Bob Cousy was doing, they were frowning on him for that. They were saying that's showboating. Like, that's not how the game was played back then. It was a different era. That's why when he said that if he was able to play in this era, the 90s era, it would have been completely different. We would have saw another crazy type of Wilt Chamberlain. There's no way Wilt Chamberlain's not averaging 40, 50 points per game in the 90s. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. I can't. Ralph, they don't accept it, but Wilt Chamberlain's that dude, bro. He's just that dude. He would have had the same dominance. He would have been as dominant as ever. Let me bring up. What up, Travis? Thank you for joining me. As we talking Wilt Chamberlain's greatness. Shout out to True the King. Y'all know to check out True the King on the crossover and other platforms on FYF. Let's see what he got to say. Since Wilt Chamberlain cooked Jordan in a debate on who's better on the 50th anniversary banquet. He did. Remember, they said Jordan never argued about being the GOAT, but he spent a whole banquet arguing with Wilt Chamberlain about who was better. Not to mention he puts the GOAT symbol on his shoes. But Travis, what you got for me today?
What's up, Ajani? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's good?
Awesome. Hey, man. I'm at work, so I'm going to be pretty brief, but there was just a cavalcade of bad takes. I would have jumped in and cooked Brandon if I could have gotten away. But, I mean, when he asked you want to talk shit about Hakeem versus Wilt's efficiency, and you don't even have Hakeem's actual field goal percentage on deck, it's 50.7, dude. I just had that off the deck. And, like, you're not going to just sit there and say he was worse and, like, get cooked when the guy turns around and asks you what he was, and he wants to adjust for error. What a casual. Like, what about the way they were making the basketball? How about, like, how shitty the rims were until they started caring about that? And, like, the basketball, like, all these things that go into how players shoot, the style, like, the tempo, all this shit. Wilt was wildly efficient for his era and for any other era.
Super efficient. Super efficient.
He had a variety of...
efficient. Yeah.
Exactly. He was, I mean, it wasn't his fault. He was more skilled and athletic than, any other player. He would be today also. I mean, would he be the best player in the league? I don't know, but, like, he was... Like, the only argument for him not being the GOAT is because, it's like what I always say, is because all the awards and the accolades were not available. All the advanced metrics weren't available then. He would have averaged, by all accounts, especially in his prime, like 30, 20, and like 10 triple-double bare minimum. Like,
and all the games that they got of him, full games, they tracked at 8.8 blocks per game.
Exactly. The man was a monster. I've always said it's Wilt 1A, 1B, if all things were equal, because they'd have like 8 DPOYs, they would make all defense, all NBA every single year. They would just be statistically gods. I mean, it wouldn't even be close. And like, so, I mean, Wilt Chamberlain is incredible. There's no knock on him. He became a little bit more of a team player, as you discussed, brilliantly discussed, by the way. Props to you, like later on in his career. And I mean, he recognized that. That was actually a mark towards his individual brilliance, as far as like his IQ, basketball, and the willingness to adapt his game. But yeah, that's all. I just want to say, like, when I hear bad takes, especially about greats, when they try to use things like that, but then out of context, I'm really happy that you actually checked him and shut him down.
Yeah, he's right here. He's right here. Go ahead, Brandon.
No,
respond.
yo, Travis, hiding like a little girl as usual. So first of all, Hakeem's one of the best players in history.
Brandon, hold on. Brandon, before you go on your little soliloquy, respect my guests and respect Travis. Don't call him a girl, none of that. He called you by Brandon. Don't do that. Let's be respectful enough to have a conversation. Now, come on with your lies.
Okay, so first of all, I said Hakeem's true shooting percentage was better than Wilt's. And the problem with adjusting for era is that Hakeem dominated Hall of Fame centers. Hakeem dominated David Robinson. He dominated Patrick Ewing. Hakeem averaged 35 a game in the finals against Shaq. So Wilt was not playing the same level of competition as Hakeem. And when you talk about skill, Hakeem had better footwork. He played soccer. He had elite footwork for a big man. Hakeem had better footwork. He was a better shooter. He was a more skilled passer. He was more skilled in every way than Wilt. And he was much better when it came to efficiency because of his skill. He was a far better shooter. Hakeem was also a far better defender than Wilt. Hakeem could guard multiple positions. Hakeem's the only player in NBA history to lead the league in blocks and steals. Hakeem was more skilled. He had a more offensive and defensive impact. He was more efficient against better competition. To say Wilt was more skilled when Hakeem had far better footwork, he was a far better shooter, like, just tattoo casual on your fucking forehead.
All right, let's start here. Travis. I got this, Travis. Let me go ahead and handle this young man here. Let's start. Travis don't need to bail out because you're a liar. You're a liar, right? And let me tell you why you're a liar, Brandon. How many Hall of Famers did Wilt Chamberlain face in 1964? How many centers were in the league, and how many of them were Hall of Famers, Brandon? Do you know?
The Hall of Famers in the 90s shit on the Hall of Famers in the 60s.
I asked you a simple question. What is the amount of centers that were Hall of Famers in 1964?
Okay, name a player Wilt played as good as Shaq, David Robinson, or Ewing. Name one player.
Again, name me the amount of centers. I'm not. You're changing the topic. The topic is what I just asked you. Name the centers, please.
Right.
Name how many centers.
Shut the fuck. Shut. No. Oh shit. Say it again. Say something else. Oh. Say something else. Say something else, nigga. Sit your ass down.
Now, to put you in that goddamn dugout because that's where the fuck you belong. You are such a fucking liar. In 1964, you had Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain. You had Walt Bellamy. You had Wayne Embry. All centers in the NBA that are Hall of Famers. All of them. And if we go to other big men like Bob Pettit, Gus Johnson, Jerry Lucas, the NBA was full of star big men when Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain were in the league. They had more Hall of Famers by percentage. And by percentage. They had it. You keep bringing up true shooting percentage. If you want to keep bringing up true shooting percentage to show how a player's scoring efficiency is, I ask you this. Out of all the top 10 players in NBA history, how many players in the 90s are top 10 in true efficiency? Can you answer that question, Brandon?
The 90s was a defensive era. You have to look at...
No, and so was the 60s. The 60s was a defensive era. I asked you, how many 90s center are top 10 in true shooting percentage all time?
Okay. The 90s centers shit on the 60s centers. It's not close. You can't name one center Wilt played as good as David Robinson.
I don't remember ass. Shut up, bitch. Oh my God. Sit your ass down.
See, y'all, I'm tired of this man. I don't have. He doesn't want to answer no questions. He just wants to talk. There is not one center from the 90s in the top 10 true shooting percentage of all time. So that means that none of them are as great. And you know what? The 2010s have it. I got Rudy Gobert. I got DeAndre Jordan. I got Jokic. I got Tyson Chandler. I got Karl Anthony Towns. I have Clint Capella. Half of the players' true shooting percentages are great. So are you saying, Brandon, that the 2010s had greater centers than the 90s because of true shooting percentage?
No, I said this.
Get the fuck out of here. Get off my show. Go ahead, True. Thank you for joining me, True. Appreciate you. Go ahead and plug in your program, sir. Thank you for joining us. What you got for us on today's show?
Hey, man. I appreciate that, man. Go check us out on the crossover every Wednesday. 5:30, no, my fault, 5:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and In the Zone with Moose, So Crazy Renegade, every Tuesday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, man. Hey, man, appreciate you having me on, man. Great topic.
Rumble in the Rain.
Rumble in the Rain every Sunday, too. Shout out to Rob. Yeah, man, great topic. Listen, even if I disagree, Wilt Chamberlain deserves that respect. I mean, I will say this about Wilt Chamberlain. I think he's arguably the most talented basketball player of all time. So you having this conversation, the topic point makes sense in a certain degree. People don't want to admit it, but I mean, Wilt Chamberlain was like that. I mean, at one point in time, he was a GOAT. So, I mean, when it comes to his IQ, talent on the floor, I mean, well-rounded game. I mean, also too, and put in more context of why you say he would dominate in the '90s. Wilt Chamberlain was still active playing basketball. I mean, yes, pickup games, whatever case may be, but he was playing against NBA players in his 50s, competing on the, you know what I mean? So
No
he still,
facts.
I mean, it was rumored for him. I mean, it was rumored him coming back at one point in time, I think in the 80s or something like, I don't know, but like, yeah, he was able to compete. He probably could have, he could have played like 20 minutes a game and still been effective. He still, listen, he was still in shape and everything. So, I mean, I don't know if y'all saw the picture back in the day, him and Shaq in Orlando. He was looking over Shaq. So I mean,
Exactly.
physically, you can't say he couldn't. Physically, you can't say he couldn't play. And I mean, he had the IQ. I mean, listen. So what? Listen, Kareem dominated. Well, Wilt gave Kareem the business too. I mean, regardless case may be. I mean, and that was the old Wilt Chamberlain.
He said, name one center Wilt face as good as David Robinson, Shaquille O'Neal. Bill Russell. Get the fuck out of here.
Bill
Get
Russell.
the fuck out of here. Bill Russell.
That's all. Listen, he went against Bill Russell. Like, you can't. It doesn't matter. A conversation ends at that point. You went against Bill Russell. I mean,
but he keeps
it is
bringing up
what
the
it
same,
is.
and he brings up the same guys. It's Hakeem, it's David, it's Shaq. Like he doesn't like that. That doesn't make the '90s the best era when it comes to centers. Like it just doesn't. Just because you don't know about the '60s guys doesn't mean they were not great in the '60s. There was great centers in the '70s too.
Hey, really?
And the
Here
'80s.
come Brandon Cash.
Brandon Cash is crazy.
Here come Brandon Cash with the name. Here come Brandon Cash with the name calling. Even though I came up here and I said I disagree, but like okay, like that's the thing. You're not even listening. You want to hear what you want to hear because you.
Yeah, they're crazy. They're crazy, bro. They don't know how to talk, bro. But let me I got Aaron in here. Thanks, Aaron, for joining me. What you got for me today, sir? Are you there, Aaron? Oh, I got to unmute you. I'm sorry.
Hello.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I'm ready. Go ahead.
Yo. What's up, Ajani, man?
Peace,
mad
brother.
love, and I don't mean to disrespect and shit, but this dude Brandon gets on here, right, and starts calling people clowns and shit and little girls. You disrespecting T Perfect and shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, this dude probably never had an imaginary fight, bro. You know what I'm saying? And this is the reason why. This is the reason why I'm gonna keep going at Jordan fans for the fucking disrespect. Cause hey, Brandon, if you want, you can hit me on Facebook, Aaron Robles, real quick. I'll send you my address and let's see who you call a clown in person, bro. I don't give a fuck what charges I catch. You know what I'm saying? That's real shit. And my address will be real, nigga. Real. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to, you can call me a clown in person and I'm gonna knock out all your teeth and have you counting sheep, buddy. You know what I'm saying? So go ahead with all that name calling shit. We talking basketball over here. We ain't even talking about Jordan. And you over here slurping Jordan. I guarantee you if Jordan pulled up and pulled out, you'll drop to your knees real quick, buddy. You know what I'm saying? Get the fuck out of here, man. No, I just wanted to say it, Johnny, man. You know what I'm saying?
We weren't even talking Jordan. He brought up Michael Jordan.
Crazy, my dude.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. But I just wanted to say, like in my mind, I always felt like the '90s had the best centers. You know what I'm saying? But now hearing your takes and shit like that, I'm gonna start doing like more research. But I felt like in my mind, or my opinion, like the '90s had the best centers. You know what I'm saying? Like David Robinson, Shaq, fucking Hakeem, Alonzo Mourning, Mutombo.
Yeah.
A little bit of Yao Ming, you know what I'm saying? But you guys are so great with these takes, man, that people actually learn. You know what I'm saying? So I'm learning as I go, plus with my own education. So I thank you guys a lot for that shit. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, man, Will was dominant, man. You know what I'm saying? And much love to him and praise to him, man, in his career.
Appreciate that. Now, if we go off of what he's going off of, remember he keeps talking about true shooting percentage.
Yeah.
The closest guy that I get from the '90s in true shooting percentage is Brad Daugherty. He is 57th all time with a 59% true shooting percentage. Then we got Bill Cartwright. So is Bill Cartwright dominant? Bill Cartwright has a better true shooting percentage than Hakeem Olajuwon and Shaquille O'Neal. Does that mean Bill Cartwright was help to Michael Jordan then?
Exactly, but the reason I say that the '90s were the best big man era is because like the centers were like more skilled. I feel like David Robinson can hit a three. He can, you know what I'm saying, spread the floor and shit. So can Hakeem, you know what I'm saying. And like Hakeem to me had the best post up game ever. Like to me, Hakeem is the most skilled center I've ever seen in my life, next to fucking Embiid and Jokic, because they're gonna be coming up on that same label too. That's how I feel.
Yeah, because we never seen Wilt.
Yeah,
and that's the really
exactly,
true.
exactly.
Even at that though, it's still old footage. It kind of looks old. But listen, look, Brandon says here you have to do efficiency relative to error. again, does that mean Bill Cartwright is a great center because his efficiency relative to era is better than Shaq and Akeem Olajuwon? He's a part of that era.
Exactly.
You don't want to accept that.
Bro. This dude's delusional, bro.
No,
I'm
you
telling
gotta-
you,
you
that
gotta-
dude, I don't even know why you let him on, bro. That dude is delusional, bro.
I gotta let him on.
Bro.
It's got to be juxtaposed to volume 2. See, James, you know the game, so I know I know you trolling, bro. It's funny, but you got to include volume in there.
He used volume has nothing to do with true shooting, my friend.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
Bro.
Your true shooting is measured by the amount of points you put up compared to the amount of shots you take. That's it.
No, you missed.
That's what it's for. So don't use the number. No. Listen to what I'm telling you. Don't use true shooting unless you understand what it means. I understand what it means.
You're missing the point.
What's the point? What's the point?
Somebody averaging 13 points on 74% true shooting or whatever ridiculous number, right? Like a Clint Capella or a DeAndre Jordan catching lobs from a point guard don't mean shit. That's what I'm telling you. You gotta
So why bring it up? So why bring up a stat that you can turn around and say doesn't mean shit?
I don't give a fuck about no true shooting percentage.
Okay, but I'm just saying. I'm just exposing him for it. I'm just exposing him for using it. He used it. He used it. He's using it. What volume should you have for it to count then? What should a player's volume be for your true shooting to count?
We comparing the top players to top players. Not no Clint Capella and sorry ass Rudy Gobert, and we talk about dudes that's averaging like 25, 27, 30. Shaq, D-Rock, Hakeem. We having a goal conversation.
I'm looking at Jokic. I'm looking at Karl Anthony Towns, right? I'm looking at Joel Embiid. I'm looking at Sabonis. I'm looking at Giannis. I'm not seeing no 90s centers. I'm not seeing no 90s centers. He claims that the 90s were the best. I don't see them. Let's go to the 80s. I see Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I see Artis Gilmore. Hold on, let me continue. Let me see if I can find some more centers from that era. I see Daryl Dawkins. I see Kevin McHale. Here's Dwight Howard.
But at least you could have a conversation about today's centers relative to the 90s. In the 60s, bro, the average center was like 6'8". The average player was like 6'4".
There was 6'11".
That's not true. That's not true. It was 6'10".
Exactly, that's not true. You guys been saying a lot of falsehoods. That's false. That's a lot of falsehoods.
You can go look yourself up. The average big man height back then was 6'10", bro. Y'all
gotta stop lying. Y'all gotta stop lying.
Y'all gotta do your research, bro. You can go look.
Generation 2, bro. Stop it, bro.
Do that talking. Source up or
Just
shut
go
up.
Google it. Just go Google it. It's all.
You don't say 6'9".
Oh, wait, Peter, you on blast. Source up. Because you've been saying a lot. Source up. Tell us. Where is your information coming from? Where is your information coming from? Where did you get it from?
Am I allowed to share my screen?
Yes, you can. Go ahead. Let me see it.
All right. Give me a second. Let me get the website up. I'm going to come back and share my screen.
Okay.
A second if you just spewed that out so quick. That's crazy.
So, again, here they go again, knocking the competition. Remember what we all say about the 90s.
Even Brendan can't say
they won't allow us. They won't allow us to knock the 90s competition. Because I asked you, who was Akeem Olajuwon's steady competition? He played David Robinson 4 times. He played Shaq twice. Who was his competition? How many times was he playing against Ostertag and those bum-ass centers from the 90s? All those horrible teams that had a bunch of bum centers. Like Cartwright. I know y'all don't think Cartwright was great. How many times? Sean Bradley's, the George Mirasons, the Iowa Candies.
The Nays.
The what's it called? The Michael Finleys. Is it Michael Finley? Who was the guy that? What was his name? Chuck Persons. Divock. Like there's a lot of bum centers in the NBA.
The power forwards was the bigs back then. What are we talking about? For real,
Greg Foster. You don't remember Shaq used to Brad Miller. That's who Shaq was going up against. The Collins twins. They were just giving dudes jobs in the NBA back then because they just needed 7-footers. What do y'all be talking about?
Rick Smith was alright though. Don Juan, but Rick Smith was alright though. We ain't gonna do that though. Rick Smith was solid though.
No, Rick Smith was a good player. There was some there was some good centers. Again, compared to like the NBA was expanding, right? So you're adding more players. So again, you had the Mutombos coming in, there's Lonzos, the Shaq coming in, all those guys, David Robinson. Those are all early 90s, late 80s guys. Right, Akeem is an 80s guy. He was drafted 85, 84.
Right. Yeah, and to your point to the centers, right? Like people in 1969, if I'm not mistaken, Wes Reed made All-NBA teams and Bill and Wilt didn't. That's how talented the centers was at the time. Like Wes Reed, I think Wes Unseld won an MVP. That's when he won MVP that year, his rookie year or something. So. Mind you, go do your research, y'all. Like, they played against competition. Mind you, we're talking about Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell didn't make the All-NBA team. It was Willis in the same.
Look, you had Wayne Embry, right? He was the center in the 60s. You had Zelmo Beatty, another these are Hall of Famers I mentioned to you, another center in the 80s. You had Willis Reed, Walt Bellamy, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell. That's 6. In an era that had, what, 10 teams? 8 teams?
Jerry Lucas.
Exactly. You're talking about 50% of the centers in the league are actual Hall of Famers. You had Dave DeBusschere, who's a power forward, Hall of Famer, right? You have like you said, you mentioned Jerry Lucas. He was a Hall of Famer. Nate Thurman, another Hall of Famer. He was only a power forward because he was on Wilt Chamberlain's team.
Yeah,
Wilt Chamberlain left.
Played center. Bob Pettit center too. But he played
Bob Pettit. Bob Pettit.
And he could shoot threes.
Tom Sanders.
Bob Pettit could shoot the 3-ball. Go back and look at his range. He could shoot the 3-ball at the range at that time. Bob Pettit was definitely above for his time too when it comes to shooting range and things of that nature. Y'all gotta do your research, man.
Yeah,
like,
and
the film is there.
Yeah, and we're measuring players compared to their era.
Right.
In 1965, only 2 players shot over 50% for the season. That was Wilt Chamberlain and Walt Bellamy. The average player in this era was not shooting above 40%.
Hey, Johnny, I got my
You got it?
I got the website fired up. I don't see a thing on here to share though.
You gotta go. If you're on your phone, I don't know where to tell you, but if you're on your computer, it should say present, and then from there you can share your screen, and it'll say you can share your screen. But what's the name of the website?
I'm on my. Oh yeah, I'll give you the website name. Hold on. That's why I like Zoom, man. Zoom.
Well, we do things on StreamYard. Shout out to everybody who's a content creator. It ain't easy. StreamYard allows you to have some extra features and things of that nature.
It's called runrepeat.com, and the name of the article is the evolution of NBA hype.
Runrepeat.com. Bro, that sounds like oh Lord, man, that don't sound
if
too
y'all got a more
credible.
reputable source, present it. I'm just sharing what my source
What you say once again? What say run what?
Runrepeat.com.
Runrepeat.com.
And it's the evolution of NBA hype. Let me see, what's the name? What's the title of it? 70.
All right, let's see here. Height of the NBA players throughout the history. Let's do this right here. Let's go ahead and do some
Wilt
research.
Chamberlain's reputation of playing against Milkman, the average weighted height of centers from 1960-73 was 6'10". The average weighted of centers from 2016 to 2019 was 6'11". What are we talking about, brother?
It's 6'11" now. So
yeah, it says despite playing against Milkman in the 1960s, from 1960 to 73, the average height was 6'10".
And what site is that you got that from?
I'm on the Hoops Geek.
Hoops Geek. Hoops Geek is actually more credible than Run Repeat.
And when you just type in the average height from the 60s, it says it right there, 6'10". From 1960.
And then the other thing too, you gotta remember, guys, it's all the other positions too. So the help side. Hold on.
No, we're just talking about centers.
No, this is what I'm saying though. The help that's coming is short as hell too. That you gotta factor that in too. If you
No,
got
we
a
don't.
small forward that's coming, listen to what I'm saying. If you got a power forward that's coming to help, that's 6'6", that's a big difference from a 6'9" power forward. You feel me? Or a 7, 6'8" small forward.
Ain't nobody
compared to a 6'3".
6-something. Ain't nobody 6-something doing anything versus Wilt Chamberlain. That's what y'all fail to realize.
You was playing against midgets, bro. And
No,
dudes
That's not true. That's not true.
No, he
That's not
wasn't.
true.
No, he wasn't. Peter, we are not going to accept that lie. The average center height was 6'10".
Come on, man.
The average center height is 6'11". You're not making any difference by 1 inch. Let's let Mac Def get in here. Thank you for joining me, Mac Def. What do you got on today's topic? We're talking about how great Wilt Chamberlain is. What do you got for me today, sir?
Wilt Chamberlain, all-time great, deserves to be in the GOAT conversation. You got him the GOAT. That's what's up. I feel if you took away accolades and championships and you just said who's the best basketball player, most dominant, I would go with Wilt Chamberlain. That's the only reason why I don't have him as the GOAT, is because accolades and championships and winning matters to me. But salute to Wilt Chamberlain. This idea about no competition, I mean, he beat Bill Russell and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, bro. Enough said. Like, what are we talking about?
And Willis Reed. He did. I think he beat Bob Pettit too as well, if I'm correct. He was dominant.
The competition, he went up against competition. I still got the 90s over as far as centers go over the 60s, but to play Bill Russell and Kareem, and then people don't know who Willis Reed is and Wes Unseld and Walt Bellamy and them, and like, come on, Nate Thurman. Like, come on,
Exactly.
y'all tripping. The competition was steep what Wilt Chamberlain went up against.
But why you say accolades though? When he got every accolade that was available at that time.
Every accolade.
What?
He got every accolade that exists. He has every accolade that existed at that time.
Hey,
Yeah,
Johnny, by your own admission,
the championship is what.
Hold on, wait. Let's let Mac answer that. Mac, what do you think about that, Mac? He had every accolade that existed in that era.
Yeah, and I grant him the asterisk of Defensive Player of the Year. I think he could have got all that in block records. The reason I don't have him as my GOAT is because championships and winning, making your teammates better, that goes into my criteria. So that's the only reason why he's not the GOAT.
He broke up the Celtics dynasty. He's the only one that did it. Like,
and like I told you, a lot of that stuff about him not winning is crazy because, again, besides the Knicks, the Celtics, and the Minneapolis Lakers, he's the only one to have multiple championships in that era when he retired. So even being a two-time champion at that era was a lot of championships, because the only people who had more were Mike and the Celtics, to be honest with you. So that's really it. Like, he still won in an era that was very difficult to win in. He had to go against basically, like y'all said, a super team in that Celtics team. Several times.
He had great teammates too. This notion
no, he did. I'm not gonna say he didn't have a team, but I'm just saying, like, when you put into context how his coaches didn't like him as much, that he was in unstable franchises throughout his career. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And he was still able to exceed a lot.
Man. That's like not excuses. In 5 years, what are we talking about?
That's not excuses, bro. That's understand. That's context.
How can you tout the competition of the era and then in the same breath say that the average field goal percentage was 40%? That's garbage.
What?
Not for that era. Not for that era. The same way the 90s was garbage. The 90s is garbage if we compare it to today's NBA. It sucks. It's horrible. They were shooting 28% from the three-point land. Nigga, the three-pointers were so horrible, they had to shorten the line. They gave them a WNBA three-pointer. That's how horrible they were in the 90s. That's just horrible. You can't keep doing this.
If they shooting 40% on two-pointers, what would they have shot from three? 40% is horrible. So imagine the sorry niggas back then. They shoot like in the 20 percentile and 30 percentile.
You have to compare them to their era. You cannot take them outside of their era.
So let's say let's say this percentage thing. You're going in with the efficiency and percentage. Who's a better scorer than Wilt Chamberlain?
Nobody.
Shaq. in the Pro Bowl
Oh,
A man who never averaged 30 in the regular season.
Dang, that's what I wanted to know because this efficiency is going way too far. So I just needed to know that. You think Shaq is a better scorer than Wilt Chamberlain based on percentage, sir?
If you running up and down the court at a 120 goddamn pace, of course your fucking points per game gonna be inflated, bro.
Shaq can't do that. Shaq can't do that.
Why he couldn't?
Because he can't.
Because he had the chance. He never did. Hold on. It's the same 48-minute game. All this pace. Forget the pace, bro. For a guy who could run 48 minutes a game up and down the court at that pace, that tells you how great he was. If Shaq in a slow pace era can't run 40 minutes a game, then that tells you what Wilt was doing.
Niggas was just running up and down, chucking up nonsense.
That was basketball. You cannot disrespect the game because you don't know the game of basketball other than an ESPN highlight and an NBC intro.
You can't disrespect 45 minutes a game, bro.
No, and this man said, listen, you know why the pace was so slow in the 90s? Because they sucked. They had to slow the game down to give the ball down to the big man, and he would dribble for 5-10 seconds, pass it back out, then pass it back to me. They didn't even run plays that much. This shit was horrible basketball. They played pure basketball in the 60s. The ball was moving. Shots were being missed, yeah, but they were moving. They weren't just sitting around here giving the ball to the center, letting the center dribble for 17 seconds, then pass it back out, and then I shoot the ball. That's horrible basketball. They were not skilled enough to do anything else other than dribble, and shoot at the end of the 24-second shot clock. Y'all gotta stop doing this because then when we start discrediting the 90s, y'all come up with a bunch of bullshit. Oh, it was this 90s. That's what the era was like. You just gotta understand it.
Never ending cycle. Never ending cycle. It's a never ending cycle.
And that's why Wilt Chamberlain's career is a mirror to Michael Jordan's career. Because the same things y'all doing to Wilt Chamberlain is what we do to Michael Jordan. It's the same shit. And we should do it to Michael Jordan. Because y'all created this bullshit about how y'all want to knock players down without understanding anything. Wilt is the most misunderstood player ever.
That's not basketball, but Showtime was successful in this era.
Nobody dominated the game of basketball more than Wilt Chamberlain. He is the most dominant player in NBA history. He dominated in the playoffs. He dominated in the playoffs as well. Yes, he did.
Dropped off precipitously.
No, his shots per game dropped off tremendously. Not his efficiency, not nothing else. Not his production, nothing else. He was still dominant. He was told to stop shooting. That's what it was. I keep telling y'all that. There are two different Wilt Chamberlains. You cannot sit here and tell me that Wilt Chamberlain averaging 33 points per game is bad and a drop-off because he's taking less shots. It's not like he's taking the same amount of shots. Y'all are saying that he's choking because he's taking less shots. That's not the same shit. He was averaging 22 field goal attempts per game for his regular season in his career. He averaged less than 15 shots per game in the postseason, y'all. He's taking less shots. That's all it is. He's taking less shots. I'm sorry, he averaged 17 shots per game. He's just taking less shots. Because it was a tougher era. It was easier to stop the big men back then. And he was still dominant.
Ajani. In the 69 finals, in that season, Wilt Chamberlain was averaging 20 points.
And in the 1969 season, he was asked to stop shooting the ball. He was told not to shoot the basketball. He still averaged 20 points per game. I mean, he averaged 11 points that game in that series, but he averaged 25 rebounds.
Bro.
But he shot 11 shots per game. He shot 11 shots per game. He took less shots.
3 single-point games, a 4-point game.
He took less shots. He was playing with Elgin Baylor and Jerry West. That was his first year. He was not supposed to be scorer of the team. You're asking him to do shit that he was not supposed to do. He was not made to be the scorer.
Hey, Johnny, about the since people we want to bring up Jordan and all that stuff. Jordan, that's the one thing about it too. Jordan never was asked to take a lesser role ever in his career, ever. Really. Like Jordan, that's the benefit of doubt that he had over a lot of people in NBA history when it comes to these GOAT conversations. He never had to really sacrifice being who he is. You know what I mean? Which is, I mean, hey, that was the luxury of Jordan and the Bulls in his situation at the time. Wilt Chamberlain had to sacrifice, do what he had to do to help teams win, because to the point of the reason why he took a lesser role of scoring to help the benefit of the team. So, like, what's the problem with that?
He shot. Listen,
you don't think that's a knock?
That's not a knock. In 1969,
no, because you helping your team win. If you helping your team win, how is it not? You're doing
exactly
what you have to do to help your team win. You can't. I mean, because granted, when he was having the crazy ass numbers, he wasn't successful. Because granted, when you are dominant like Wilt Chamberlain, listen, it's phenomenal what he did. But when your teammates, like, at the end of the day, it's a team game. So when you're so dominant and ball heavy, where other guys can't get in rhythm, that's going to be hard for you to win a championship. It's just a reality situation. So when he took a lesser role and get more of her teammates involved
and heavy on the scoring and won.
Yeah, but Jordan because
he wasn't heavy on the scoring. Y'all, he's bringing up. He's trying to use the 40-point per game Wilt Chamberlain versus the 20-point per game Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain he was the fourth most attempts on his team that series. He was taking less than 10 shots per game. They played a 7-game series. He took 58 shots that whole series. He shot 50%. He was not. The job of him was not to be the scorer of that team. They had Elgin Baylor. They had Jerry West. They told him to do everything else. It had nothing to do with him.
I knock Wilt for that. That's just me though.
How you?
Of course you want to knock him that because you believe the Zesty Jeffrey lies. Y'all believe the Zesty Jeffrey lies.
The reason,
and y'all don't hold Jordan to none of this. Because it's true what True the King just said. True the King just said something real. Jordan was asked to lower his role and do things differently. And that's why they had got Scottie Pippen. That's all Jordan had to do was score. Jordan stopped being the team's facilitator. He stopped being the main defender on the team. He stopped doing all. Wilt didn't stop that. All Wilt did was stop scoring. He was still the best rebounder, the best defender. He was the best playmaker on the team. But maybe when he played with Jerry West, I can say maybe Jerry West was the better playmaker. But still, he was the best. But we're talking about 67 and 68 in those years because again, that was his first year in LA that you're bringing up, and they made it all the way to the NBA Finals again. He made more finals taking less shots and won more taking less shots. So of course his impact was still there. But go ahead, Mac.
The reason I knock Wilt is because Wilt Chamberlain even said, well, if you take Bill Russell off the Celtics and put me there, I don't think we win as many championships because I was selfish and because I like to score. So your main objective and what he was great at was scoring, but he couldn't lead a team to a championship being a scorer. So he had to play.
No, he could. He would have won. He could have won. Listen, he lost to the Sixers. He lost to the Celtics 7 times. If there is no Bill Russell Celtics, he has easily 6-7 championships. What are y'all talking about, man?
Hold on. Did he win a championship being a leading scorer?
He lost 7. He lost 7 times to them. That's the point, though. But that's the point. If Bill Russell's not there, listen. If Bill Russell's not there, he's winning in 60. He's winning in 62. He's winning 64. He's winning 65. He's winning 66.
You can say that about anybody if somebody's not standing in front of them.
But that's the point. We're trying to explain to you that you're trying to hold him to winning when he had to face against the greatest teams of all time.
No, I'm holding him to his style of play. If Wilt Chamberlain is a scoring machine,
yes,
that's not going to help his team win. I'm knocking him.
Not against the Celtics. Not against the Celtics.
Hold on. He didn't win. I'm knocking him for
against
that.
The Celtics.
If he has to change his play style and play like Bill Russell to get his more team involved than not scoring, then yes, I'm going to look at that and say, well, your most dominant self, it's not that you couldn't win championships. You even said it yourself, Wilt, that I don't think even if I played with 8 Hall of Famers with the Celtics, we probably would have won less championships. So I had to play different.
They win 14. If Wilt Chamberlain, if Wilt Chamberlain was born... No. If Wilt Chamberlain was born before Bill Russell, the Celtics are winning 14 NBA championships in a row.
That's your opinion.
That's
But
not
Wilt
opinion.
said, I don't think so.
Wait. Listen. Wilt said
Yeah,
that
I don't think so.
You're lying. Wilt said that those guys wouldn't be Hall of Famers. Not that he wasn't going to be successful with them. Meaning that they wouldn't have the numbers that they would have had with him. Because they wouldn't have been able to be. He said Hall of Famers. He said Hall of Famers. They would have not. Y'all gonna let me talk. I let y'all talk. Y'all gonna fucking let me talk, man. You fucking Zesty Jeffries with your bullshit. I keep tired of you fucking Michael Jordan fans and you fucking Zesty Jeffries with all this bullshit. I'm not lying. You're lying. I'm not the one lying. You're lying.
You just makes me sick. Okay? I'm just John Q. Public now. It's just you and me. Mano a mano. I'll teach you to pick
Bro,
on
he
a
said
helpless
championship.
invalid.
All right, he's had enough.
Be quiet, Mac. That's
Somebody help the
Zeffy.
captain. We've got to get to that press club dinner.
This way.
Jesus, guys.
No, he did not say championships. He said those guys would not be as the Hall of Famers that they were. The teammates that he had, he would have won championships. Don Nelson hit a shot in that 1969 game when Hal Greer in 1968 was horrible for the 76ers in a game where he shot less than 20% and they lost the game 7 versus Boston. He said that they would not be Hall of Famers with him because they would not have had the same roles that they had with Bill Russell. They wouldn't have been scorers like that. That was his words. That's exactly what he said. He didn't say he wasn't going to win no championships with them. He's going to win championships with that team. If he was with the Boston Celtics, he would have won 14 straight championships. They would have built a great team around him. I don't know why you guys can't accept the truth. That is just the facts. All these lies that y'all keep coming up with is not going to work here. You guys are clearly the Michael Jordan police, and somebody called you over here.
My name is Sergeant Frank Drebin, Detective Lieutenant Police Squad. I was in the middle of getting my car washed when I heard the call over the police scamp.
Have you seen this man?
Calm down, son. It's just a drawing.
We have to be real, Mac. We have to be real if we're going to have a conversation, Mac. We have to be real, bro. You cannot be making up these lies.
All right. Bet money.
Bet
What's
money
realer
what?
than that, nigga?
What's bet money to what? What
Bet
What
money that
we
Wilt Chamberlain said that we wouldn't have been as successful if I would have played on the Celtics, which means we wouldn't have won. He didn't say nothing about the players being Hall of Famers.
They were talking about the teammates that he had.
all
Oh wait. Did you also hear Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell say that Wilt Chamberlain had the same amount of teammates and it was equal? That it wasn't really the teammates that made him lose? Did you hear him say that also as well?
Yeah, that's what I'm knocking him for. I just said I'd knock him for that. He had teammates,
you're knocking him
but
for
he
losing
couldn't
to
win
Bill
because
Russell.
He was being selfish.
No, because he was losing to Bill Russell. He was losing to Bill Russell. You don't do that against Michael Jordan. Jordan couldn't win throughout the 80s because he was being selfish.
Wait, how?
Do you do that to Michael Jordan? Do you hold Michael Jordan back for the entire 80s for not winning because he was selfish?
No, we don't.
Of course you don't. You know why?
Because he doesn't have a freaking team.
Yes,
That's
he does.
why, you idiot.
What you mean he didn't have a team? He did have a team. Jordan was too selfish.
He had a team in the 80s.
He did have a team. This is why.
Every year.
This is why you are the MJ police.
Tell Mom I'm on official police business. Special Officer Dupey reporting. Mom says when I wear this badge, you're supposed to treat me like a man of the law. Hey, no talking to the witness.
MJ had a team in 1988. He had Hall of Famers and everything. You're gonna say he didn't? All right. Wait, Matt. Who was on Bill Russell? Who was on Wilt Chamberlain's team? Go ahead, tell me. Who were you playing with?
You had Guy Rogers, a Hall of Famer. You had Nate Thurman, a Hall of Famer. This is when he's averaging 40 points, 38 points per game. He had 2 Hall of Famers. You're not gonna say Guy Rogers and Nate Thurman aren't great. That's number one. Number two, he lost a 3-1 lead to Bill Russell in the Celtics after winning a championship and having a number 1 record with Hal Greer and Billy Cunningham. He lost with Jerry West, Hal Greer, Happy Hurston, and Elgin Baylor. He lost with them 4 Hall of Famers on his team. Wilt Chamberlain played with 8 Hall of Famers his career on the teams, and he lost. He played with just as many Hall of Famers as Bill Russell. And to be factual, Wilt Chamberlain's teammates are better than Bill Russell's teammates. Yet there's not a teammate that Bill Russell played with that's better than Jerry West or Elgin Baylor.
Okay.
None of them.
Okay, now you just mentioned players like Nate Thurman who didn't play with Guy Rodgers. The original guys that you want to talk about he played with was with Paul Arizin, Guy Rodgers, Tom Gola. Those were the first Hall of Famers. But like I told you, every NBA team around that time had 3 or 4 Hall of Famers on it. We're not talking about that. So he couldn't have choked versus another team that had 3 or 4 Hall of Famers. He lost again to the Boston Celtics most of those times. By the time Nate Thurman got there, he wasn't even playing with Guy Rodgers or Paul Arizin anymore. Yeah, he had a Hal Greer at that time of his career. He also had another player by Chet Walker. But guess what? He didn't have Elgin Baylor and Jerry West and those guys when he was playing with them. And again, he kept losing to Boston, who had 7 or 8 Hall of Famers at that time. And the same thing with the Lakers. Michael Jordan lost to a team that didn't have no All-NBA or no All-Defensive player on their roster.
Damn.
Who, the 80s Pistons?
The 1988 Pistons, yes. That means they were not as good as any of those teams that the Celtics were. At all. None of them were. Again, how many All-NBA players was on the 1988 Detroit Pistons, Mac?
the 88 Pistons is not
again. Answer my question. Answer my question, my friend.
According to your research, they didn't have no All-NBA players.
Okay, so they had no All-NBA players. Am I correct?
But they had 3 Hall of Famers. You're correct, but they had 3 Hall of Famers.
They had 3 Hall of Famers. Name the 3 Hall of Famers, please.
Excuse me, 4 Hall of Famers. Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, Dennis Rodman, and what's my boy's name? Adrian Dantley.
All right, and Jordan did have a Hall of Famer on his team, correct?
Who? Pippen his rookie year? Yeah, he had 2 Hall of
Joe
Famers. Pippen his rookie.
Joel Dumars was in his 3rd year. Dennis Rodman was in his 2nd year. You have no problem mentioning them as Hall of Famers. Now we can't use Scottie Pippen? Mac, this is why I put you in the MJ police, because you're another liar. All you're doing is sitting here lying in front of everybody. That's all you're doing. That doesn't make no sense.
They can help.
Yes, I gave the sketch artist a description.
Ed, that'll be all, McTeague. Why don't we get that other artist? You know, the one who never dates, lives with those 2 guys?
Yeah, right. Sorensen?
Jane, I'd like to see the rest of the Institute now, if you don't mind, Dr. Meinheimer.
To talk about Hall of Famers. Well, guess who Wilt Chamberlain lost to in 1961? He lost to Larry Costello, Hall of Famer. Dolph Shaves, Hall of Famer. Hal Greer, Hall of Famer. I mean, I keep telling y'all, these teams are full of Hall of Famers on these other teams. But you want to just say, it's the Detroit Pistons. It's the Detroit Pistons. It's the Detroit Pistons. Just off the name alone, I'm just supposed to accept that? No factual evidence of any kind that makes the Detroit Pistons of 1988 great? Because like I told you before, if Michael Jordan doesn't choke to them in 1988, guess what? There is no Detroit Pistons team to talk about.
Big facts.
Like, you guys don't know the game of basketball. Again, he lost to in 1960, the same team. Hal Greer, Costello, Dolph Shaves, Hall of Famers, 3 of them. Jordan didn't lose to. Matter of fact, let me go see who made the All-NBA team this year. Let me go double check this, because again, you zesty Jeffries don't know the game of basketball. All you want to do is lie. You just want to lie and make it seem like we're supposed to accept those lies as facts. Here we go. All-NBA team, 1961. Dolph Shaves is on there. So guess what? That makes them better than the Detroit Pistons. They had Hall of Famers, plus they had All-NBA players. I don't see none of Wilt Chamberlain's teammates here as an All-NBA player. You guys don't know the game of basketball. And as an MJ police, you're never going to do anything to me.
Fuck about no police then. I don't give a fuck about no police now. Shit. You know what? You can do whatever you want to do. So it don't mean nothing to me for you to show up tomorrow morning with your head blown off. You understand what I'm saying?
So we know in 1962, he lost to the Boston Celtics. 1963, they didn't make the playoffs. 1964, again, he loses to the Boston Celtics. So Wilt Chamberlain has way much more tougher competition. 1965, again, he's losing to the Boston Celtics. 1966, 66, all his career is against Hall of Fame teams, all NBA players, legends. Jordan choked versus a team that didn't have none of that shit. But you don't hold that against Michael Jordan because you guys are basically the MJ police. You guys want to hold Jordan to a different standard. You guys want to make Michael Jordan special. But you guys are the special ones on the short bus. That's what y'all
Hey, can I ask a question, Ajani?
I'm listening.
What was the, all right, so if you could put in a nutshell the disparity between the Celtics, the 60 Celtics, because from what I'm gathering, you're saying that they had, in totality, a head and shoulders better team overall than what Will had. Am I correct in that assessment?
Yeah, but most of the times he had a better team than them. That's definitely.
Okay.
Maybe 1969 would have been a little bit different.
All right. So if you could put it, in terms of expressing that disparity, how would you, like, how big of a disparity would you say that was?
It was a big disparity. That's how great Boston was. They won 11 championships. They won 9. I mean,
let's do it like video game style. Overall, let's say the Celtics were what, a 99 overall.
Yeah. Wilt Chamberlain's team never reached 99. Wilt Chamberlain never reached a 99 team.
What number would you put him at?
Maybe 97, 98 as the best team.
Come on, bro.
Even 1967, even the 1967 team, which was the best team Wilt Chamberlain ever played on, right? Wilt Chamberlain played on this team here. Let's go to the Philadelphia 76ers. They won 68 games, right? Even this year, this is when he had Hal Greer, he had Chet Walker as his teammate, and he had Billy Cunningham. He also had Costello, but Costello was late in his career, right? These are all Hall of Famers. This was the best team he ever played it with. By hands down, this was the best team. And this team is not a 99 team. This team is not as good as maybe the 64 team. Now, if you want to go by team records and what the accomplishments was, obviously they were one of the greatest teams of all time. But if you go by the roster, like you're saying, we go player by player, yeah, man, the Celtics always had great players.
All right. So by your own admission, the disparity is from like a 99 compared to like a 97, right? All right. And then what is that stat they always give when they say the total amount of points that Wilt lost to the Celtics by? How much was it? I don't know the number. I always hear it rattled off on panels. I think what it was like 8 total points or
no, they played 4 game 7s versus one another, and those 4 games were a total of 9 points differential.
Okay, that's the stat. Right. So you're talking about a 99 compared to a 97 overall. That's barely any separation, right? And then you're talking about a total of 9 points in series that were decided by 1 game. And we're saying that this guy is the second best player of all time. And with just that little bit of separation, as dominant as you saying that he was, he couldn't get over the hump more than once?
Yes, because again, you have to listen, Peter. Listen, Peter. Michael Jordan couldn't get over the hump neither. I keep telling y'all this. There was a lot of situations like in 1964 when they were in that game 7 and Bill Russell knocks the ball off the top of the banister, and the ball now goes to Philadelphia, or I believe, what's it called at that time, right? And you get the famous steal by Havlicek that had nothing to do with Wilt Chamberlain. If they get the ball to Wilt Chamberlain, they score and win that game. But they get a turnover because Havlicek made a steal. In 1968, in a game 7, where Wilt Chamberlain balled out, Hal Greer, I told you, went 4 of 21 from the field. The same guy that y'all want to give credit to say that he had the teammates and he had help with, bummed out in that game 7 for him. Another game 7 where Paul Arizin didn't ball. That was in the 1962 game. He didn't show up while Wilt Chamberlain was there. Again, against the Boston Celtics, Wilt Chamberlain balled out. He always balled out. He was always doing his job. The only difference was he took less shots because it was harder to get his shots versus a better team with a better team strategy as far as how they played the game of basketball. That's why they were able to win 11 championships. And that's why if he was on Boston, they would have won 14. Because he's better than Bill Russell. That's just the facts. And they would have had a stable franchise to where he could have been playing the game. The man was phenomenal. You're holding him to things that had nothing to do with him.
For me, Ajani, it's just too much. For a guy that, you're selling as being so dominant, it shouldn't be this much explaining. Like,
it's not explaining, because y'all keep lying. I have to explain lies.
Like, when people talk about Tim Duncan, for example, right? You could point to, like, the 04 Olympics where he was like a marquee player on that team and they melted down, or you could point to whatever other failings that he had, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you juxtapose that against winning that 03 finals, I think Tony Parker was a rookie at the time and a pretty mid-level overall roster, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't do nothing but come away and say, that dude was that dude. When you look at
I can. You know why? Let me tell you why. Because you know nothing about the Game 7 in 1965 when Wilt Chamberlain had 30 points, 32 rebounds, was 12 of 15 from the field, which means 80% from the field, and his team lost that game while Hal Greer went 5 of 12 during that game. While Larry Costello went 1 of 7 during that game. Luke Jackson went 3 of 10 from that game. And somebody let Sam Jones go off for 37 points. Somebody let John Havlicek go off for 26 points. Wilt Chamberlain did his thing. You guys don't know this because you guys don't know the game of basketball.
We could all go on Basketball Reference and look at them same box scores, bro.
I'm looking at it. You didn't know about that game. You didn't know about that Game 7. You was holding him up for games in 1969 in 1965. 1965 when he was averaging 30 points per game. He went for 30 and 32 in a Game 7, shooting 80% from the field.
But that's what I'm saying, Ajani. You giving his other teammates, or you kind of knocking them for having a bad game in a particular game, right? But when I do the same thing for that 69 series, right? Where he lost the 7 games to Boston, right? And in one of the games, he scored 4 points, and they lost by 1 point.
They won that game. He scored 4 points. And the game that they lost in Game 7, he actually played as well too. He was taken out of that game. They took him out again. He was not asked to score. He was not asked to score.
But that's what I'm saying, Ajani. If your team can win against the vaunted Boston Celtics, right, with you scoring 4 points, that lets me know that your team wasn't no trash ass team. They were right there.
And I told you 1969 was the one year that he might have had the better team than Boston. That's what I said. But again, he was still the third option.
And he had 2 8-point games in the finals after scoring 20.
That had nothing to do with why they lost that series. You keep trying to blame it on that one. That had nothing to do with it.
You can't be serious right now, bro.
Yes, I'm being serious. That had nothing to do with it because that was his role. If that's his role, if they can win with him scoring 4 points, why do you want him to score more?
He was scoring 20 points in that reduced role. So that was the standard in that reduced role.
No, because it's different when you're playing Boston and Bill Russell. He's not averaging that against them. He's taking less shots versus them. He's averaging 19. They're telling him not to shoot the ball. He's told not to do that. Even if we go to the Game 7 in Boston, right? Game 7, 1962 NBA Finals, right? Let's go to this game here. Wilt Chamberlain has 22 points and 22 rebounds. He's 8 of 9 from the free throw line. He's 7 of 15 from the field. At the end of the day, he just shoots less when he's playing against Bill Russell. It's not like he's not scoring. Or effective. He's effective in every way of the game. You don't know the game because you think it's all about scoring. It's not about scoring. It's about everything else. He still did everything else. He blocked shots. He defended the paint. He rebounded. He passed the ball. He set screens. He did everything he was supposed to do. You guys don't get the game of basketball. You don't understand it.
Ajani, what determines the winner of the game? The team that has the most rebounds or the team that has the most points?
How do you score without the ball? How do you score without the ball, Peter?
Ajani.
How can you score without the ball? Okay, then. How do you get the ball? How do you get the ball?
You demand it. That's how.
How? Oh, wait. The demand is not a stat. There is no stat that says demand. How do you get the ball as a team? How do you get a possession? Answer the question. Answer my question. Why can't you motherfuckers ever answer my question? I'm going to ask you it again, Peter, because I don't have time for this. I'm going to ask you again. How does a team gain possession? Answer that question. Don't say nothing else but the answer. What is the answer?
How does a team gain possession?
Yes.
Well, I don't understand. How does a team gain possession of the ball?
A team gains possession by either rebounding the ball, meaning the other team missed and you get the ball. So you do need to fucking rebound to have the possession of the basketball. Or cause a turnover, which means you either doing a steal, blocking a shot. Either way, you have to do more than scoring to score. If you let every team score against you, how are you going to win? You have to stop them for you to be able to score. The game of basketball is about getting the most possessions. And you gain more possessions by getting more rebounds, by playing great defense, not by scoring. Thank you, Lamont, for that. So now do you understand what I mean by why points is not the only thing? Okay.
But with all that, listen, I'm going to concede to you, obviously, scoring is not the end-all, be-all. Mm-hmm. But if we were weighing, just similar to how you would weigh a GPA, right? Or like you have a weighted GPA, or you weigh certain values more than the other in a statistical equation. Mm-hmm. Points are more important, much more important. Let me finish my sentence. Mm-hmm. Points are much more important than any other ancillary stat. Rebounds are a function of missed shots.
False. Okay? False, Peter. False, Peter. False. This is why GOAT James Kingdom exists. Scoring is not the most important part of basketball. That is a subjective personal preference because you like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. It is not the most important aspect. The guy who averaged 15 points per game and rebounded and played defense more won more championships than anybody in NBA history. Why? Because there's more to basketball than just putting it in the hoop. The game started. Matter of fact, that's what I'm gonna do. Next week, we're gonna make the show about the rules of basketball. Not the rules of the NBA, but the rules of basketball. I got a lot of education and a lot of exposure to do with you guys here. I see that very well. There was a point in time in the game of basketball, dribbling was illegal. So that means you must pass the ball to actually get a basket. So in that term, and under those ideologies, is scoring really the most important part of basketball? Because if you can't pass, you're not going to score. The same way if you can't dribble, you're never going to score. You guys have to stop with this idea that points and scoring is the only important or the most important factor in the game of basketball. It is not. There is so much facets of the game, which is why it is a great game. Which is why none of you Zesty Jeffries could appreciate the game. Besides the 1990s when Jordan played. And real basketball fans that are outside of the Zesty Jeffrey-ness can appreciate basketball, including the 60s and including today's NBA. We appreciate the 90s. We just know the 90s is not that great. You guys like to lie, and then you guys like to set these parameters up, and we have to sit around here and accept it? I don't need to accept that you think scoring is the most important part when I'm watching Bill Russell not score and win championships. Clearly, the game of basketball is more than just scoring. There's so much that goes into it. It's just like with the Stephen Curry nonsense. People are telling me Stephen Curry is a better basketball player than Magic Johnson because he could run around the basketball court without the basketball better than Magic Johnson. Get the fuck out of here. I don't give a damn how many times Stephen Curry is running around the basketball court. If he doesn't have the basketball in his hand, he is not a threat. And if somebody's not setting a screen for him, he is not a threat. And if somebody's not passing him the ball so that he can get a good shot off, he is not a threat. Stephen Curry could run all day long on the basketball court. He can't even separate himself. He's not that athletic. He's not separating himself from a Patrick Beverly. He's not separating himself from a Westbrook. He's not fast enough. He has to run around screens. So that means the screen is just as important as Stephen Curry running around. You guys don't know the game of basketball, and it's sad. It really is sad, man. You guys have to understand that the game of basketball is more than just scoring. So next week's show, we're going to talk about the rules of the game. Hopefully nothing big pops up because I really wanted to talk about something else. But you guys have to appreciate the game of basketball. Again, Wilt Chamberlain did not choke versus Boston. He just shot less. His career numbers are not bad because he was choking in the playoffs. He just shot less in the playoffs. And the only reason he shot less in the playoffs was because he was asked to shoot less later on in his career. All the numbers are here for you to see. The man went from taking 31 shots per game his first 7 years in the regular season to 26. His field goal percentage only went down a half a point, or 1 point, something like that. Yeah, a half a point. And it was the same thing. And you see the difference. He went from taking 26 shots to 13 shots. It's not because he's bad. His field goal percentage went up. His rebounds went up. His assists went up. His game impact went up. His influence on the game went up. Everything about his game went up besides the fact that he just decided to stop scoring. And we should thank Wilt Chamberlain that he stopped scoring. Because if Wilt Chamberlain would have kept doing what he was doing between 1960 and 1966, he would have 45,000 points. Easily. Tyson, what I'm doing is exposing people who don't know the game of basketball, like I always do on that Friday Night Exposure. Hit that like button, sir. Hit that subscribe button. Become a member of the channel. Check us out and see what we do best here, man. We talk the game. They can't talk the game. They can only talk narratives, lies. And I can't take it anymore. That's why I had to make a whole show about Wilt Chamberlain, because people do not know how great of a basketball player Wilt Chamberlain was. They want to say, if he was that great, why didn't he just always win? Well, if Jordan was that great, why didn't he always win? Why was he 1-9 with Scottie Pippen? Without Scottie Pippen, I mean. Matter of fact, why does he have more losing seasons than Wilt Chamberlain? Don't bring up this nonsense about tough competition, because the 90s did not have the competition that I mentioned. He did not go up against the teams that Wilt Chamberlain went up against at all. Jordan always had the better roster. So this is what y'all do. That's why I'm glad I did this show, for y'all to understand how much similar Wilt Chamberlain and Michael Jordan careers are. But all y'all do is lie. Y'all can't accept it. Wilt Chamberlain has complete impact. Straight impact. And none of y'all have proven me differently or otherwise on tonight's program. All I've proven to you is how great of a player Wilt Chamberlain is. And all y'all want to do is discredit everybody. Mind y'all, they say that it's us LeBron fans that discredit eras, that disrespects legacies and legends and icons of the game, all for the sake of LeBron James. But y'all heard every last one of the Zesty Jeffries that come up here all the time, excluding Mac, because Mac's not really a Zesty Jeffrey. He's just the MJ police. Peter, you are a Zesty Jeffrey. You are a Zesty Jeffrey. You have him as the GOAT, and you talk like a Zesty Jeffrey. When you heard them all disrespect the 60s, they all disrespected Wilt Chamberlain. They mind you, they credited Bill Russell for beating Wilt Chamberlain, but they don't credit Bill Russell when it comes to 11 championships, and that's the factor. That's the facts. Because like I told y'all, when Wilt Chamberlain had to go up against Bill Russell Celtics, that's why he lost so much. If he doesn't go up against the Celtics 8 times out of his whole career, that means he faced the Celtics 8 out of 14 seasons. That's more than half of his career. 60% of Wilt Chamberlain's career was facing Boston. And he gave them some tough matchups. He would have won a championship in 1960 if it wasn't for Boston. Would have won it in 1962. Would have definitely won it in 1964. Would have won it in 65. Would have won it in 66. Would have won it in 67. Would have won it in 68, 69. Matter of fact, Wilt Chamberlain would have been the championship from 69, from 64, 66, all the way to 69. He would have 6 straight championships. Then y'all would have nothing to say. But all because Bill Russell existed, all of that changed. Which is why Bill Russell is the greatest winner of all time. Because he understood how to win the game of basketball. He was definitely a greater winner than Wilt Chamberlain. But he wasn't a better player than Wilt Chamberlain. He understood how to be a team player better than Wilt Chamberlain because he did that his whole career. Wilt Chamberlain did that late in his career. That's why Wilt Chamberlain made 5 finals his last 5 years. I mean, 6 out of his last 5 years. I mean, the 5 out of his last 6 years. Excuse my language here. I'm getting caught up. See, it's getting late. So I'm going to get up out of here. I'm going to get up out of here, Peter. I'm not going to let you get your last word in because I got to get up out of here. I can't sit here and take this anymore. I'm not even talking LeBron James and Michael Jordan. I'm talking Wilt Chamberlain. Y'all brought up Michael Jordan. Y'all brought up LeBron James. I just showed y'all why Wilt Chamberlain is the true GOAT of basketball. And why, for me, he is Thanos. Okay? And the reason I call him Thanos, because it legitimately, for you to beat Wilt Chamberlain, it takes the Avengers. To defeat Wilt Chamberlain, you must come up with more than 1 or 2 guys. And that was Bill Russell Celtics. Bill Russell Celtics were the Avengers. They were able to completely change everything about how dominant Wilt Chamberlain was. And thankful for us that that happened, because if not, there is no argument that Wilt Chamberlain is the greatest player of all time if he leaves the league with 8, 9 NBA championships, including all the other things that he did. He would have won more MVPs if it wasn't for Bill Russell. Bill Russell won 4 MVPs while playing with Wilt Chamberlain in the league. So imagine how many MVPs Wilt Chamberlain would have had without a Bill Russell. Michael Jordan didn't have a Bill Russell to compete with. Michael Jordan's greatest competition was Karl Malone. But Wilt was misunderstood. He was a phenomenal player. He played the game like none other. But it was hard to understand how great he was, and let's let his peers break it down.
Chamberlain was concerned about Chamberlain. He was in love with his stats.
I think showing his peers that he could score 50 a game, that he could get 24 rebounds, that he could get 8 assists. I think that was enough for Wilt to say, look, they're the numbers.
He was so great that no matter what he did, people never accepted it as being enough.
If you look at his records and the records that he set, I always thought it was like watching him in slow motion. I thought he could have even done more.
If you win, everybody says, well, look at him, he's that big. If you lose, it's, how could he lose a guy that size? I think it's confused him. He would have been better in an individual sport. He'd have been much better just competing for himself.
Facts. Facts. Wilt was so great that none of his coaches or anybody around him could truly understand his greatness. They were just in awe of him. They couldn't believe it. Just being around him put you in awe. The man was just incredible. You guys want to see how much of an awe he used to put his teammates in? Let's just look at this.
I'm going to tell you something. As bad as it looked, you didn't miss by that much. You see me make 2 in a row. I had to set for a fast. There you go. I'm good for $5. I just made the last 3 of them. I don't care. This is the one I'm talking about for $5. Get up! Get up!
Did you see their faces? They couldn't believe what they were watching Wilt Chamberlain do. This is a 7-footer shooting like that from the outside. The man was incredible. He dominated the game like none other. He was great. He was Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Norman Chamberlain.
He thought, and rightfully so, that he was the greatest basketball player that ever lived. Physically, he was still the most imposing physical player that ever played this league, period. There's no one that's come close to him in terms of just physical prowess. And as athletic as any man who ever walked the earth. You try guarding that on a basketball court sometime.
This was more than just some big guy who dunked the basketball and ran up and down the court. This was a true athlete. And his physical prowess was unbelievable.
He's going to the basket.
Deep, there's Wilt to block the shot. Boy, Wilt blocked that nicely. Wilt playing another tremendous game. Wraparound pass. The Globetrotters are here and jumping in. Great play for the big man.
Man, I don't know what else to tell y'all. See, and this is why the Friday Night Exposure exists. All right? Because I like to break the game down like this. I have a passion for history. I have a passion for the game of basketball. So every Friday night, right here on the GOAT James Kingdom platform, also on FYF Sports Debates. Shout out to Lamont. Appreciate you, brother, for giving us the opportunity to multi-stream on your channel as well. We go live every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, where I expose people who don't talk the game of basketball correctly. And as y'all can see, there's a lot of people who can't talk the game correctly without having to knock players down for the sake of the player that they like the most or for the logic that they perceive as to be the logic that needs to be for everybody. At the end of the day, greatness is greatness. I appreciate greatness. And because of that, I have Wilt Chamberlain as number 2 on my list. Because with all of his stats, accolades, and achievement, there is no way Wilt Chamberlain is not the second greatest basketball player of all time. He was the original GOAT till LeBron James stepped up on the scene. Then from there, if you want to throw in MJ and Kareem, Russell, Magic, all these other guys that you guys like to put in the top 5, we all know that those are the common names that get called for the top 5. You could throw them in there. But Wilt Chamberlain has to be in your top 5 greatest players of all time, hands down, especially if you're a Zesty Jeffrey. Everything about Michael Jordan that you love, Wilt Chamberlain was that. The only difference was Wilt Chamberlain Michael Jordan didn't have to deal with the Boston Celtics of the 60s. If Wilt Chamberlain was in the 90s, he would dominate the 90s. The man understood the game of basketball. You don't believe me? Let's let him tell you.
The 25-year-old Wilt Chamberlain, transplanted into today's NBA, what do you do?
Well,
you can take Russell with you.
It's simple for me. It may be a little different for Russ, but simple for me. I think it'd be as easy for Russ. You see, with the new rules, which are all slant to help the offense. Now, when I get the ball, instead of having 2 and 3 people and Russ all at me at the same time, I'm by myself with one guy. I would love it. I would love it. 50 points, maybe 60 points, maybe 70 points a game. Because I had nobody. Wait a minute. Well, you asked me a question, right?
70 a game.
Well, you know, the last 10 games, I was talking to Russ about the last 10 games of my 61-62 season, right before I scored 100 points, I averaged about 71 points a game.
Yeah, you were on a rampage.
Yeah, but I'm saying to you, but it's easier now. I was too fast. I was too strong. One guy is not going to take me down in that particular way. The best basketball athletes I've ever seen played in the 50s and 60s.
So Wilt Chamberlain did not have no problem letting y'all know how great of a player he was. These are all his accolades and achievements. Not all of his achievements in general. We know he has numerous records that'll never be broken. This is why he's Thanos. He has cemented himself as this. There is no denying Wilt Chamberlain's dominance. He's the most dominant player in NBA history. No one ever dominated the game more than Wilt Chamberlain. When we're talking about as a player, not team success, as a player. As a player. So ladies and gentlemen, you have now seen what I do here on a Friday Night Exposure. All I do is expose factual stuff and bring real truth to the people out here. I don't have no reason to lie. I don't have no reason for nothing. At the end of the day, Wilt Chamberlain is one of the greatest players to ever play the game, and he is truly what I considered the GOAT before LeBron. And if we really wanted to count everything that he could have won, if we were to count blocks, steals, defensive player of the year, all defensive teams, player of the week, player of the month, anything like that nature, he would have all those records. He would be phenomenal. It would be no question asked. And if he didn't have Bill Russell in his era, like Jordan didn't have no competition in his era, he would have legitimately been like a 7, 8, 9, 10 time NBA championship. But ladies and gentlemen, we are the GOAT James Kingdom channel. I'm Ajani the Exposer. I go live every Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern. But we go live 12 noon on Sundays for the GOAT James Kingdom show. You guys can join us every Sunday for the GOAT James Kingdom show with B. Lee and Ajani, where we talk the GOAT conversation and we talk the game of basketball. Brandon and I do it like none other. We go live every Sunday. You can catch us then. We do it big time. Again, we are the GOAT James Kingdom platform. You guys check out our membership. Become a member of the GOAT James Kingdom platform. We have several perks, several tiers for all of our members. Become a member of the channel. Also subscribe and become a member of Lamont's channel, which is the FYF Sports Debate. There's a whole slew of information that we provide to you guys. We're on YouTube, Facebook, IG, TikTok, Twitter, Discord, Twitch. We're all over the place. Sign up for these programs that we got going on because we're going to continue to give you guys the true things about basketball. Today's show, again, ladies and gentlemen, was about Wilt Chamberlain and why I call him Thanos. And why he's, to me, the second greatest player to ever play the game of basketball. So again, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a great evening. It's been another great Friday night exposure with the Exposer. You have now been exposed by the Exposer. I'll be back next week with another topic and another great slideshow of information for you guys so that we can continue to talk the game of basketball. But again, y'all make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, become a member of the channel. Don't be afraid to pop up when I put the link as well, because that's what it's all about. But today, a lot of you guys got an L. So take those L's with you. Go home. It's over. Go drink some Hennessy, I guess. Do what you do best. But I'm out of here, ladies and gentlemen. If you're a basketball fan and you're tired of basketball shows that talk about fake narratives and using non-basketball terms like killer instinct, playoff translation, gravity, come to GOAT James Kingdom.